April 15th, 2025 Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is being recorded through Zoom teleconference. City Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Committee Member Mott,
Yes.
Committee Member Benuelos,
Yes.
Committee Member Kelly. Here. Committee Member Moraz,
Here.
Committee Member Collins,
Here.
Committee Member Clark,
Here.
Chairwoman Chenault.
Here.
All members are present.
Committee Member Clark will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move to public comment.
Actually, before we get started on that, I just wanted to take a moment to do some brief introductions and that way we kind of get more oriented to who we are and who we're working with and, you know, start building some team between, am I doing okay? Between the city and the committee members. So I'll go ahead and start with myself. My name is Tiffany Barnett. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Hemet. My family's been here since 1947. I have worked here at the city since 2007. I started in accounting downstairs in utility billing, and I've worked my way up, and I am now the administrative services director. So my heart and my family is all Hemet. So with that, we can go around and introduce each other, and I would like to kind of make it a little bit fun. And if you can give us something that we don't know, maybe some kind of trick or trait that you might have that other people don't know, and maybe like a favorite vacation spot or a bucket list item. And if Tammy, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, Tammy Chenault, was born and raised here in the Valley. And let's see, something, I'll just do something interesting. One of my hobbies I got into in 8th grade was genealogy to get out of writing a research paper. So there we go.
My name is Dick Clark. Most of my time was spent up north in Humboldt County. I came down here with my wife about 7 years ago. Her family is pioneers to the valley, came in 1908 and started the Roses and what was called Howard Rose Company and a green horticultural business too. There's still an empty field. Both of them are empty on Girard, 1 block north of Florida. There's a field there, and that was the original where they actually, before they built any houses, they had the whole field there, and the family and kids all were living out of a wagon. And the other one is up at the corner of Menlo and Park. There's a empty field there, and that was the horticulture. So bucket list is to go to the Azores. My grandma, when she was about 18 months, came with her family through Ellis Island there. And I've not been able, I get to Ellis Island, just talking genealogy, and I can't get farther. So that's our bucket list.
So my name is Veronica Banuelos. I've been living in Hemet since 1996. I used to work at the city of Hemet from 2004, left 2012, then went to the city of Moreno Valley, then Paris, then came back to Hemet in 2019, and then I left in 2021. So I work as a consultant for developers. So I'm on the other side of the counter. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are in Hemet High, and my little one is in HDLA. But all my kids, my oldest ones, they always went to St. Heinz, and so that's where Tiffany used to go. Something that they don't know about me, I used to play poker back in my days. I used to play poker.
You're good.
Yeah, yes, and I used to go to the tournaments and COVID hit. Actually, and after I had my daughter, I stopped going. So bucket list, probably go to Europe. That's on definitely my bucket list. And that's it.
My name is Jean. I've lived here for 20 years, and speaking of Ellis Island, I came to Ellis Island as a baby with my mother from Vienna, Austria. She met my dad during the war and brought me over here to the United States. But I'm originally from Monterey, California, and it's a long story how I ended up here. My favorite vacation spot is Europe. And on my bucket list, I would like to go back to Europe. And a little thing about me is sometimes you have to just put up with me because a lot of times I have no filter. And it's got, what's that?
I said, welcome to the
Yeah.
crew.
And I've has gotten me in a lot of trouble. But anyway, this is my favorite chief of police. I've been a volunteer at the PD for 8 years, and by far he's my favorite. I went through Brown, Webb, Poos, Mel, chief. So I'm glad to be here, and I've lived in, did I say I lived in him at 20 years? Okay, fine. But anyway, just put up with me if I start yakking away.
Mark Collins, got stationed out here in 2011, 2012. I've been here since then. Got out a couple years after that, got into city work. I do planning, so I'm on the other side of the counter as you. Two of my kids go to HDLA as well.
Oh.
The other two go to Western Center Academy, high school. See bucket list, get out of government work and go be a dive instructor.
Nice.
Nice.
Oh, I knew somebody like that.
My name is Marcus Kelly. I'm actually, I guess, one of the newest transplants here to Hemet. So I came just during COVID, bought a house out here. Been out here for about 4 years now. My family came through Ellis Island. I'm the fourth generation. My name is actually Marcus Leo Kelly the fourth. When my family came through, they changed our name from Leo Marcus Kelly to Marcus Leo Kelly. Let's see. My favorite place to go vacationing is up in Yosemite. I love hiking and being outdoors. I was a Boy Scout leader from Tiger Cubs all the way to my son graduated as an Eagle Scout. And yeah, I work for a couple of nonprofits in the area. One of them's the Western Science Center. And just glad to be here with you guys.
Hello, everybody. My name is Delia Mraz. I was actually born in Riverside and then moved over to Hemet. I think I was like 5 when we moved over. So I've been here for a long time. I wear many hats. I like to crochet. I like to do art, cake art. I work for the county right now. Sorry, I get nervous talking for people, but I'm really excited to be a part of this year. One thing I do like to vacation in Big Bear, and I love Tahoe. I've been to Tahoe. On my bucket list is actually to go to New York. I'm a big Yankees fan, so I want to go see some games there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and thank you for having me.
I guess I'll continue the updates. I don't know if we'll get to Mark's bucket list, but I'm Mark Prestwich. I'm the Hemet city manager. My parents moved me to Hemet in 1975 when I was 5. I was born in New York, but they were really from Los Angeles, so I don't have that New York accent. I'm a graduate of Hemet High School in 1988. I moved away after college to primarily Northern California, where I worked for 28 years growing my career, and left as the city manager of St. Helena in Napa Valley about 3 years ago. My first stop back because I remarried someone in Southern California. We lived apart for 7 years. So I was looking for a job somewhere down in this area near where she worked and has worked for the last 28 years. And I landed at the city of Palos Verdes Estates, and then Hemet separated with another city manager, and I had an opportunity to come home. And I've really enjoyed being here for the last 26 months now. So thank you and welcome to our new faces.
I'm John Paul, your city clerk. I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary here. The most senior director on the executive team. And a couple of things about me.
I've worked at many agencies. I've worked as an office assistant starting off in Pomona and then moved up the ranks at various cities, including working at San Bernardino, Palm Springs, San Luis Obispo,
Wow.
and Hemet. So I've had a little journey. I've had good mentors. And so I'm also a master municipal clerk, which is the highest designation that you can get in the city clerk's profession. And she just left, but Deputy Elodie Klug is our deputy. So you'll see correspondences from her when we move along in this process with the Measure U committee. And then a couple of things about myself are I enjoy photography, and then on my bucket list is something I've done, but I want to return, and that's panning for gold. I've done a little prospecting with a prospector up north, and I want to go back to do it again. And we have Stephen Graham, also city attorney. We'll let you introduce yourself, sir. We didn't forget about you.
Oh, very good. Hello, Measure U Citizens Oversight Committee. My name is Stephen Graham. I am your city attorney. I was born and raised in San Bernardino, and that's actually where I met your city clerk. I was a deputy city clerk in that city for quite some time before I came to the city of Hemet in 2021. Fun fact about me, my wife is 37 weeks pregnant, and she's scheduled to deliver next week. So that's why I'm appearing remotely. She wanted to keep me close this week, so you'll expect to see me in person in the future. I also got into panning for gold. I want to say that must have been like 7 or 8 years ago. There was a documentary series on the Discovery Channel that got me really into it. I bought a bunch of stuff. I found no gold. And I used that as a lesson in my life that the people who made money during the gold rush were not the prospectors, but they were the people selling the prospectors' goods. So thank you all. Look forward to the meeting.
Makes sense.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Webb. I'm your deputy fire chief. Chief Sell is the fire chief, and he extends his apologies that he couldn't be here today. He's on the board of directors of the California Fire Scope Committee, which is a committee that outlines operational plans for the entire state. They were the ones that developed the incident command system. So he is up in Northern California representing the city well on that committee. I have been with the city for 2.5 years. I came from the county of San Bernardino. I was a division chief of administration over there. Before that, I worked for the city of Hemet, or I'm sorry, correction, the city of Upland. That's where I spent most of my career. And then in 2017, the city of Upland was annexed into San Bernardino County Fire. I'm currently living in Cherry Valley, so right up on the other side of the pass there. I love to vacation. We have some property up in Williams, Arizona, up kind of north towards the Grand Canyon that I absolutely love. And then my bucket list is to go to law school.
Yes.
Mike Ariano, your police chief. Family moved out here in about 88, I believe. Graduated from Hemet High. I had to write a list here because I can't keep it all. Met my wife at Hemet High, so we've been together now 33 years. We have 3 children, all grown up out of the house. Grandfather of 2. Being a grandparent is a whole new world. If you're not there yet, it's nothing better, right? Grandparents. Hobbies, I love going to the Sierras for sure. I can spend my entire lifetime out there. Fishing season's coming up here, as I told everybody in this room before. Fish Mess is coming up April 28th out there in the Sierras, and that's hopefully I'll make it out there as much as possible during the summer. Bucket list, I have a ton on my bucket list. Hopefully I can get to half of those, but when I retire, I plan on getting in in an RV somewhere and just getting on the road, let everything go, putting everything in storage, and my wife and I go and just get on the road and travel the country. Minimum of 6 months to a year, we'll see. And become nomads, for a year.
What year did you graduate from him?
94.
I'm 2002.
Okay.
Do you guys have not Dr. King Harold for our history? Mr. Harold? No?
Oh, Harold?
Yeah,
Harold,
Yeah, Rich Harold, yeah. He was best. He's the best, yeah.
I had Mastriani for history.
Oh, Mrs. Nastrina was really nice.
And her husband was there too. I don't remember what he taught.
I also had Mr. Chenault in junior high.
Yeah, everyone did. Yeah, class of 90, so.
2002.
Okay.
91.
91.
It's a small word. Okay. Okay, so we will now move to public comment. Okay, there is a 3-minute per person time limit for all general public comments on the agenda items. All who wish to speak, including committee members and staff, need to be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please state your name and the item you are commenting on before speaking. We will take public comment for items listed on the agenda. City Clerk, are there any additional registered speakers?
Are there no registered speakers?
Okay. We will now move to the oath of office for new committee members presented by the city clerk.
Thank you, Chair. You'll all members, will you please stand and raise your right hand? And then after I say I, repeat your own name.
Okay.
I
I, Tammy Chenault,
Jean Amott.
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations to all of you. You've been sworn in. And then at the end of the meeting, if you could sign your oaths of office, I just need the white copy.
Okay. All right, we will now move to the nominations and election of the chairperson and vice chair. Would anyone like to present a nomination for chair?
How about this guy?
Actually,
He's.
Tammy is,
You are Dick Clark.
I would like to, instead of that, I would like to nominate Tammy. She is still teaching me the ropes.
Oh, okay.
She did a very good job this past round.
A second.
Yeah, I accept the nomination. Do we have any other nominations?
We'll do a formal motion to select the chair. We do have a nomination from committee member Clark, and that is to nominate Chairwoman Chenault, or committee member Chenault in this case, to be chair for the next year. And I have a motion by committee member Clark, second by committee member Kelly. We'll do a roll call. Committee member Amott,
Yes.
committee member Benuelos,
Yes.
committee member Kelly,
Yes.
committee member Mraz,
Yes.
committee member Collins. Aye. Committee member Clark,
Yes.
Chairwoman Chenault.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0 to nominate Chair Chenault as the new chair.
All right, would anyone like to present a nomination for vice chair?
You're looking at me.
Yeah.
I could be trouble. I'm warning you.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Dick Clark as vice chair.
Second.
Was that Collins on the second?
Yes, sir.
I have a nomination for Dick Clark to serve as the vice chair. Motion made by Chairwoman Chenault, second by Committee Member Collins. We're gonna do a roll call. Committee Member Amott,
Yes.
Committee Member Benuelos.
Yes.
Committee Member Kelly,
Aye.
Committee Member Mraz,
Yes.
Committee Member Collins,
Aye.
Committee Member Clark,
Yes.
Chairwoman Chenault.
Yes.
That motion passes to select Committee Member Clark as the vice chair to serve for the next year.
Right. Okay, next we have the Brown Act training. Can we please have we will now move to the Brown Act training. Can we please have a report from staff on item 7A?
Yes, Chair and members of the Brown Act, or members of the Measure U Committee, welcome. Wanted to give this body a brief training on the Brown Act, since as members of a legislative body of the city of Hemet, you are now going to be subject to its provisions. The Brown Act is what we call the open meetings law in the state of California, and it is to ensure that decisions and discussions of our public boards and commissions are held in a manner that allows for transparency. So we're going to go over a couple of the core concepts regarding the Brown Act, and then we'll open it up for any questions. My first question, though, is, has anyone here received Brown Act training or local agency ethics trainings before today?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. Maybe.
Excellent. Staff, you don't have to raise your hand. I assume you have. So with that in mind, I guess my question is to our city clerk, am I able to share a PowerPoint on the screen here?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, so let me make sure that I can bring that up. Okay, so I've sent the request to share. I've got a quick PowerPoint. We'll go through it. Let me 1 second here. Okay. All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint slides?
Yes.
And we have a screen off to the right there, just in case you can't see over here.
Okay. So we'll do a quick background history of the Brown Act. I'm going to go through the definition of a meeting. That you'll find that the definition of a meeting is critical. We'll talk about agendas and notice. We'll have a brief discussion on closed session. It's not really something that the Citizens Oversight Committee will be doing very often, and then we'll talk about enforcement. Disclaimer, since we do this is open to the public, this presentation is an overview of the Brown Act. It should not be taken as legal advice. So the Brown Act is like I said, the open meetings law for local government agencies in the state of California, and it's to ensure that we do not have behind closed doors meetings of local government agencies in the state of California. As this is a Citizens Oversight Committee, transparency is critical. The Brown Act was enacted to ensure that our local populace could see how those decisions were being made. I usually don't like reading slides to people, but this is a portion of the Brown Act. This is literally the first section. And I think it really speaks to why we have this law here in the state of California. So if you don't mind, I'll read it out loud. The people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies that serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. So you'll find that this thread goes through the Public Records Act, through several other transparency laws that we have in the state of California, including the mandatory campaign disclosures and other documents that are on file, conflict of interest disclosures that some of you may receive. The Brown Act covers legislative bodies of the agency. So one of the questions I usually get is, well, doesn't that just cover the city council? No, it covers the city council, it covers the planning commission, it covers the Measure U Oversight Committee, it covers a great many different boards and commissions here at the city of Hemet. The definition of a meeting is relatively straightforward. It's when a majority of the members of the body are present at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate. So when we're talking about having a quorum, when we're talking about a group of 7 people, that would mean 4, right? So for a city council of 5, that would mean 3. But in the case of the Measure U Oversight Committee, we're talking about 4. Hear, discuss, and deliberate. This was changed in the last 10 years. It used to say to form consensus. Now it means to hear. So that prohibits not just discussing amongst yourselves, but also sitting in the same room and receiving a briefing. It also includes through the use of technology. So there's been many updates here trying to address the issues raised by social media. And one of the ones that I think is really important for this body to consider is, as you have oversight over the expenditure of certain funds here at the city, which primarily relate to public safety, you have a pretty broad jurisdiction that will be interpreted very broadly. And one of the newest laws that they have on the books prohibits you from reacting to a social media message of another member of your legislative body that relates to something on a topic involving the city. So that could include a like, that it could include a thumbs up, and it certainly involves commenting on Facebook messages, Facebook comments, next door, things like that. Any questions so far?
So would that include liking anything like the City of Hemet Police Department has a Facebook page? So any likes on that?
So it needs to be a post or comment from another member of the legislative body. So if it's being posted by the police department, the fire department, city hall generally, that's fair game. That's an excellent question. Thank you. There are certain exceptions to your ability to be in the same place. City staff does a pretty good job of keeping track of those, but just so you have them, it's social and ceremonial occasions, community forums, meetings of other governmental bodies. So if the Measure U committee, if a majority of you happen to be present at a city council meeting, that's okay, because that's a noticed agendized and public meeting as well as conferences, trainings, and workshops. So if you were to go to a League of California Cities conference, there would be an exception to allow you to attend that. Prohibited meetings. Here's where we can get into trouble, right? So the main one is serial meetings. So 4 of you may not sit in a room and talk to each other, but 2 of you may talk amongst yourselves, and then 1 of you leaves that meeting, talks to another person, who leaves that meeting and talks to another person. So because you've had a series of communications, it's called a serial meeting, right? And so one of the important questions to always ask if you want to talk about something now related to city business as a member of the Measure U Oversight Committee, what you'll want to do is you want to say, who else have you talked to about this on the committee, to ensure that you're not inadvertently creating a quorum through a series of communications. There are certain acceptable communications. Those include attorney-client communications. It would be rare, but you may get an attorney-client memo from our office. One-way communication by staff to individual members. So you may get a email in advance from staff. Here's the briefing data we're going to go over at the meeting. That's okay. And then, of course, individual contacts with your constituents, consultants, staff, or even a colleague. Our meetings must be accessible to the public. They must be within the jurisdiction. So we have to hold meetings of the Measure U committee in the city of Hemet. It needs to be in a place that is accessible under the ADA. We cannot require attendees sign an attendance sheet, although we usually request it because it is helpful for the minutes. We have to involve the public. So one of the things you'll notice is at the beginning of your meeting, we called for public comment. The public has an opportunity to give their thoughts and views on the matters that are under discussion. That doesn't mean this is a back and forth or a town hall style meeting, but it does mean that the public is permitted to participate. We don't have regular meetings for the Measure U committee because you do not have fixed times and places. So every meeting of the Measure U committee will be a special meeting. And that means that we are required to do 24 hours notice, but you'll oftentimes find that it is actually more than that. The next thing that's important is agendas. So how does the public know whether they want to come and comment? Well, they know that because we put an agenda out that lists what we are planning on talking about. Like I said, the agenda has to be up at least 24 hours in advance. There are certain circumstances, none of which are probably applicable to the Measure U committee, where we can reduce that time period down to less than 24 hours in certain emergencies. We do have the ability to add an item to an agenda if it wasn't on the agenda. But again, that's going to be in an emergency situation. So you'll typically only see these with the city council. For the Measure U committee, you can expect that almost everything we talk about will be on an agenda well in advance. But that brings up, what is our ability to discuss things that aren't on the agenda? So if you go to city council meetings or planning commission meetings, you may have often seen people come up and they give a public comment about an item that isn't on the agenda, and the mayor or council member will, apologize to them and inform them that we don't have the ability to discuss that because it's not on the agenda. And the reason for that is pretty straightforward, which is there may be other individuals, members of the public, who want to talk about it, but because it wasn't on the agenda, they didn't know that they should be coming to that meeting. So our ability to discuss it in that circumstance is limited. The correct thing to do is to place it on the next agenda and have a full public discussion. Closed sessions, there are a few instances where, although we strongly encourage openness and transparency, it would actually hurt the agency to have a discussion in public. So those can include real estate negotiations. If the other party to a real estate negotiation knew how much the city was willing to spend to purchase a property or willing to take to sell it, it would make negotiating really challenging. It's like having the other side's realtor in the room with you. Same thing with lawsuits. It's very challenging to settle a lawsuit when the other side's lawyer can watch our deliberations. So those types of issues will oftentimes happen in closed session. Closed sessions are confidential under state law, and disclosure of what happens is a violation of law and can be prosecuted as a misdemeanor. In terms of enforcement, the Brown Act can be enforced both civilly and criminally. Civilly usually involves a letter coming to the city demanding that we cure whatever violation occurred, in which case we will hold a public meeting to cure it. But there have been instances where individuals have purposely and intentionally evaded the requirements of the Brown Act. Those individuals have been criminally prosecuted. Those are misdemeanors as well. The last thing I'll put, these are recent updates to the Brown Act. And like I said, it involves social media platforms, no liking another member's posts. We talked about that, but also the remote participation options. So there is an ability for members of legislative bodies to participate remotely in certain circumstances, including illness or taking care of a family member. So if that is something that is going to come up, please notify the city clerk's office as soon as possible. As you can see, we are capable of having a remote meeting if necessary. And that concludes our very quick Brown Act training here for the Measure U Committee. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
If I could just jump in briefly, Stephen, I think in watching council members and Brown Act issues, the most common area where we may find a challenge would be with email. So you're going to receive, I know you're going to receive an email because Tiffany is going to promise you an email later in the presentation that's coming after this. But if you respond, if we had all of your names at the top and we asked you, please do not reply all, and then someone replied and even innocently, we would privately contact you and encourage you not to reply all. Contact us directly if there's an issue. But that's the area, and our job is to help you, right? Help everyone avoid any conflicts with the Brown Act. So you may occasionally hear from either Tiffany or myself in most cases.
Thank you, Mark. And that is the most common trip up that we will get with members of legislative bodies. Like I said, one-way communication from staff to the legislative body is permissible. And then what will trip you up is the accidental or inadvertent reply all. Because now you have communicated amongst yourselves. Okay, so beware of that. Usually the email will come with an admonition at the bottom, do not reply to all.
All right, we will now move to the governance discussion.
All right, this is going to be me. I brought you some homework. The first document we're going to take a look at are these new city council protocols. This is part of the homework, but I want to acquaint you with the document. Should be in front of you. Let everyone find it first. So these are guidelines and protocols that the city council has adopted for themselves to help the business of the city move forward in a collegial and collaborative way, and transparent way. And the council has extended these protocols and guidelines to all of the committees and boards and commissions that they create, including this committee, the Measure U committee. So what I want to do today is basically walk you through a few provisions And then we're gonna find this piece of paper. Mine's on a different background, but you will see it's green and gold in celebration of my daughter's forthcoming graduation from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in a couple of weeks. Hope she studies between now and then, but we'll come to this second. But the protocols are, you'll see this in most cities, and we didn't have a copy when we arrived, but we had a very large document. The city attorney and I and a couple of council members worked on taking a draft to the final version that you have in front of you. It can be amended and will be amended from time to time. But we work in what's called a council manager form of government, where the city council sets policy. They tell us where do we want to go. And then it's the staff's job to implement the council's policy. So our job is not to establish policy. If I have ambiguity related to what the rule is or what the guidance is, I will put something on the agenda and ask for the council to provide direction. So we had a very small issue a meeting or two ago, where I was asked to sign a document. I think it was a discount for tuition at Cal Baptist. And I said, I'm not aware that I have authority. The council hasn't granted authority to the city manager to sign this agreement that would allow our staff to receive a 20% discount on tuition. Because there was a provision in the agreement. In addition, there was a provision in the agreement that asked the city to accept and indemnify Cal Baptist if something went wrong. So I cannot individually and shouldn't make a policy decision on behalf of the council. It's their job to decide if they want to enter into that agreement, take on that risk, despite how advantageous it may be for our employees. So we took it to the council for guidance. They said, that's fine. We're open to accepting it. But again, that's an example of if it's not clear, I'm going to ask for guidance. So when they create committees, they're often required by law. They're because of the need of the moment. In your case, the committee was created through the legislation that was approved by the voters. It said we will have a citizens oversight committee. We're going to get into the finer details of what that document says later today. But to get back to the protocols help implement this council manager form of government. And it talks about roles and responsibilities of the city council. And it seeks to, I think, bring the best out of all of us in terms of how we work together. So let's take a look at the table of contents on the first page here. Just to walk through it, we have some definitions. Even if you peek ahead to the next page, the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee is actually described in here. Because we also had to marry what is Measure H, which removed the temporary tax and made it and removed the sunset on what was previously a temporary tax. And we debated internally whether this should be called the Measure U Oversight or the Measure H Oversight, but we've left it as Measure U. But that's an example. We talk about the city's openness process agenda. This is number 5 here. Agenda preparation really belongs to the city council, but it's how do items get on the agenda. In our case, with this committee, the staff will be working through the chair to talk to you in advance about meeting agendas and reports. I expect that Tiffany, who will be the city's liaison to your committee, will want to meet with the chair in advance to talk about the agenda and to provide a briefing of what the meeting's agenda is going to look like and answer questions in advance. If any of you would like to, and I think of this as a best practice, if you would like to sit down with Tiffany or any of our department directors, you are welcome to do so. In fact, I invite you to. If you'd like to take a ride along with police or fire, or a ride along in the office with Tiffany, you are welcome to do so. I encourage it. I would love that if you would be willing to take that time, I would appreciate you doing that. You're welcome to take a look at our facilities, learn about the areas that we've been able to invest in, and also you'll learn that we still have plenty of needs as an organization longer term, but it's good to see the assets as well. So you can do that in groups of 2, really up to 3 at a time. or groups of two or individually, so we can work with you on scheduling something down the road. Section 8 and section 9, I'll come back to some of this. We're gonna talk a little bit about that today. Section 14 on ethical decision-making, again, a lot of times in these documents, you will see ethical guidelines or standards that are included in the standard protocol. These are great reminders for all of us. And there's at the end of the document, several appendices, including Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which the council follows. And so our chair and our vice chair and all of our committee members can fall asleep a couple, if you're having trouble, there's a lot of fine print at the back here. That's a little hard to read, but this is Rosenberg's Rules of Order. That will talk to you about the motion practice that we're using today. But let me draw your attention to a couple of specific sections. So we'll start by going to page 9. And we've made copies so you can keep these. It's also, we have a web page. This is the email that Tiffany's going to send you, so it's an easy, quick find. But our document is included. This document is included on the website, and we also have the resolutions that govern your committee on the website. But the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee, the qualifications, the application process, the appointment process, and vacancies are all covered here under this section. So actually vacancies is separate. It's 7.3 is the section that relates to this committee. If you go to page 11, City Council interaction and communication. These are the expectations that the council has set for themselves as a governing body. And so what you don't see is the City of Hemet City Council on television. Sometimes you'll see a city council that may be having some turbulence. We work really hard to work as a team, the council in partnership with the staff to move policy forward on behalf of the council. But these are the expectations they've set for themselves. And they've also communicated through this document that they expect this for all of our committees, boards and commissions. And so if you move to page 14, this has language in it that talks about the interaction, the council interaction and communication with staff. One of the things that you'll be interested in is probably you'll have questions, especially some of the newer members. Not every city will treat this the same, but in Hemet, if you have a question for anyone in the police department, the fire department, finance, I would request that I want you to contact them directly. You're welcome to copy me, so I'm aware of whatever you're interested in. But I want you to work through the directors or the chiefs in each of those departments because they may have a subject matter expert that they'll want you to talk to instead of them, or we'll trust them to make the decisions on how to best answer your questions. But I want you to go direct to source for that. Same with Tiffany. If you have a question for Tiffany, she may have someone else that she'll want you to speak with. But you're welcome to email our staff. You're welcome to call them. Probably you're welcome to text them if you have telephone numbers. But we want to encourage that communication between the committee members and the staff. The line in the sand is directing versus requesting information. So it's the council manager, under the council manager form of government, the council sets the policy, but they don't direct the staff. They've hired the city manager to direct the staff. So when a city finds itself, a city council member in any city finds itself in a situation where they may cross that line a little bit and say, I need you to take a look at this. I had a mayor in a different city that became the mayor. He'd been on the council for 2 years, and he said, I'd like you to, literally the first week on the job, I'd like you to, he talked to the police chief, he said, I'd like you to patrol this neighborhood. There's a lot of issues happening in this location. And then he talked to the public works director about something else and one other director. And I said, Mayor, remember when we had that governance meeting? This one we're having right now, the abbreviated version. Sometimes the city manager has to have conversations that are tough for the city manager to have. This is one of those moments. We need to talk about the fact that we can't have you directing the department directors and asking them to do certain things. What they're trained to do is they have you run that by Mark, or in this case, have you run it by Tiffany, right? So we do want you to keep Tiffany informed of, any questions you have so that she can monitor that, not to keep track of what's being said, but to understand what you're curious about so we can be better prepared. One of the other things I think will be helpful for building our working relationships is, especially before meetings, we'll endeavor to publish as early as we can. And you're not going to see all the numbers today. You're going to see numbers over the next couple of meetings, and we're going to have at least 3, probably 4 or more. But you're going to have questions. And what I would like you to do is help us avoid surprises. If you have a question, it might require us to do some research. We might need to talk to someone. The city attorney might need to research something. And it helps us be better prepared to answer your question if we know the question in advance, to the extent possible. And we recognize sometimes you're going to think of a question in the meeting that you didn't think about when you were reviewing the material. It happens, and that's okay. And what we may have to do in the meeting is tell you, we're going to have to research that and get back to you. The other, under the good governance umbrella, I would say there will be times where people on Facebook or in conversations with you will have theories and ideas, and sometimes they'll sound very persuasive. And what I would encourage you to do is say, let me look into that, rather than, I can't believe that's the case, or that's terrible. Can't believe that's happening. Just provide us the benefit of the doubt, check in with the source, and promise that you'll get back to them, and you will. And maybe there will be more context, and maybe there won't, but you'll look into it and get back to them. And I think that's a good way of working together as a team. So let me move on to one more. On page 15, this is specifically, they carved out a section in this document specifically for their appointed commissions, committees, and boards. So I think this is a good section to review as homework. I think I had one more area here. Actually, we've already covered it. It's on page 24. And we're under the chapter on efficiency and accountability. And section 15.3 talks about what I just described regarding only the city manager may give orders or direction to city employees. Members shall not direct the work or actions of city employees, but you understand the context here. And if you ever have questions about any of that, you're welcome to contact Tiffany or me anytime. Now, let's turn to the San Luis Obispo document here. We're doing a governance meeting here in about 20 minutes today, but with the city council, we spend about 3 hours taking this and really getting into the weeds on some of these issues, and even asking, and we will ask you a little bit about our next meeting time and whether 3:30, for example, in the afternoon works. That's a part of a governance meeting, but I have for many years now been using some documents from a group called the Institute for Local Government. Think of them as a think tank of the League of California Cities, which is a statewide association of cities. They have an advocacy side where they lobby for legislation, and they have a training side where they provide training to elected and appointed officials. And I was fortunate enough to start my career at 1400 K Street in downtown Sacramento. I went to work for the League of California Cities. And my boss was also the executive director. I worked for the general counsel, and she was also the executive director of the Institute for Local Government. And I really came to appreciate the work that group does. They take the best minds in California and they create curriculum for us to follow. And they've developed some really nice training materials for particularly elected officials. And I'm hopeful that I've been promised that they're working on some more materials for appointed boards and committees. What I've done is I've basically adapted what they do for the elected officials, and I've converted it a little bit to to commit for committee work. And this is a document that we're gonna go on, that we've done it with the planning commission now. And we'll take this on the roadshow with other committees and commissions now that we have this protocol document. So we're actually gonna go back to the planning commission after we fill the we just have a vacancy, we're gonna fill that soon. And then we'll have another governance meeting. But I want to review this, and I'm gonna, like Stephen, I'm gonna read this because I think it's that important. These are attributes of highly exceptional committees. This was, I said, attributes of highly effective boards. Change that to committees, and I've stolen the best practice tips that are referenced down here with this Institute for Local Government Agreement. Number one, exceptional committees develop a sense of team. Committee members and city staff should get to know each other. How a person approaches issues and decision-making style. I think we heard from a couple of our committee members about their style today. This is exactly what Tiffany was doing today. You're already doing number one. Although I forgot to tell you that the oddity with me is I used to run 80 miles a week for some reason. And
80 miles a week?
80 miles a week.
Wow.
I ran cross country and
Wow.
I was out in the sun a little bit too
Yeah.
much, but and my bucket list is to do something similar to the chief. I'd like to live in one city for a month when I retire without put everything in storage and travel around the world, one city a month, and try to go at least 6 months if I can do it. It's important to remember that trust is built around understanding and respect, not necessarily agreement. So we don't expect you to agree. There's not one city council I've ever worked for that's always voted 5-0 on an item. We want and we appreciate minority perspectives if you're not in the majority vote. I think Mr. Clark last year made a recommendation on something that turned out to be initially in a minority opinion, and I agreed with Mr. Clark, and I think we saw the city change approach on a particular item. Your voice matters. We want to capture even differences of opinion, and when you get ultimately this work this year is going to culminate in a letter that you send to the city council. And if you, as you prepare that communication, if you have differences of opinion, you're invited to share other perspectives. And so we think that's healthy. Number two, exceptional committees have clear roles and responsibilities that are understood and adhered to. Create a shared understanding of the staff's role and committee's expectations, since role clarity between board, this should say committee and staff, is critical to mutual success. Having clear protocols helps avoid misunderstandings. So this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. This is the guideline for us from a roles and responsibilities perspective. And so if you have questions when you review that document, just let us know. Number three, exceptional committees honor the relationship with staff and each other. Annually take time to discuss the working relationship between staff and committee members. And we're doing that today. And one of the oddities with this committee, and Mr. Clark brought this up when you were being interviewed, is that the entire board potentially turned over in between 1 2-year cycle and another 2-year cycle. That's actually part of the legislation. I think Stephen is Stephen still here?
That is correct.
If he's not here, it's part of the legislation. And so the only way to change that would be to actually go back to the vote and spend, oh, there's Stephen. Stephen, that's right?
I missed the first part about, I'd love to agree with you, but what's the thing I'm agreeing with?
Well, the entire committee is elected to 2-year terms, but they're not staggered.
Oh, I see.
The only way to change that to a staggered would be to go back to the voters.
I remember this was Mr. Clark's recommendation at the city council meeting, I think. And the truth is, I agree from a matter of policy that it's a good idea. Unfortunately, the ordinance is set by the voters. We cannot change it except by a vote of the people. So I think that's simply something that the council will have to keep in mind as they look at who they are going to appoint in the future, about whether they want to keep some of that institutional knowledge on the Citizens Oversight Committee. Was that what you said, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. And I want to let you know I agree with Stephen and I agree with Mr. Clark. some of the terms and discussions that we'll talk about in just a few minutes, are concepts that sometimes takes years to really comprehend and understand. Some of the case law related to some of the issues on this tax in particular, a sales tax, has been litigated for 20 or more years. And so what the rule is one year may not be the rule next. I served as a staff member, staff liaison. I was Tiffany in the city of Sacramento for the same exact tax. And I worked with a group of oversight committee members to talk about the city's half-cent sales tax in that case. But I found it valuable to have staggered terms because you have that institutional knowledge that will continue from term to term. So you do have the benefit of some veteran committee members here, and they can be helpful as well. Number 4, exceptional committees routinely conduct effective meetings. Exceptional committees master the art of effective meetings, just as effective city councils master the art of effective meetings. They develop and adhere to meeting protocols and practices. Exceptional committees use public meetings not only for their intended purpose, but also to demonstrate respect and civility for each other, staff, and the public while remaining focused on committee responsibilities. Okay, so any questions or this? Okay. So I think we're ready to move to number 9 on the agenda, unless there's any other questions on governance in general.
Okay, we will now move to the consent calendar. Before we get to that, could we possibly get a copy of the minutes? Because not everyone is up for the June 6th and June 18th.
Oh, yeah, it was attached to the backup and
Push to back.
not on your agendas, but on the link or in PDF.
Oh, yeah, it was in your email.
Okay.
It's right up here.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Yeah,
Here we
because
go.
we need to have a copy of it available. Preferably in print.
You have the entire agenda over here.
Yeah, we have the entire agenda.
Do you want to look at it?
Yeah, because that way we can make sure everyone has read it before we go through. Okay, thank you. Got April. Got April.
6 and 18.
It's the June. This is April. I have April.
I have
We've got the June 6th. It was.
everyone but member Kane.
Let's see. June 18th. Okay, there we go.
Got the 6th up on that.
Yeah. Because I have the 6th.
Are we looking at discussion items?
We can do it real quick. Doing a quick scan. Got it. Okay, are there any committee members who'd like to comment on the consent item for the meeting minutes of June 6th, 2024 and June 18th, 2024? Okay, yeah.
So we're gonna get a copy of those minutes, is that what you're saying?
Do you need that to read right now?
No, I don't want
just-
to read them, I'm just saying in the future, are we getting a copy of these? minutes you're
Are they,
talking
in the future, they're all gonna be digital versus hard copies?
Yeah, what we typically do, we publish, when we publish the agenda, we'll publish it digitally. if any committee member would like a paper copy, we
okay.
can provide that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious as to what was going on with this June sixth of 2024.
Right.
It's, yeah, last year's,
Yeah.
our last meeting.
Yeah,
There we have it.
okay.
Okay. Okay, so, on here, it's stating the recommendation, it is respectfully recommended that the city council approve the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting minutes of June 6, 2024 and June 18th, 2024. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the item?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. City clerk, may we have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion by Vice Chair Clark, second by Committee Member Mott. We're gonna do a roll call. Committee Member Mott,
Yes.
Committee Member Manuelos,
Yes.
Committee Member Kelly. Aye. Committee Member Mraz.
Yes.
Committee Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Clark,
Yes.
Chairwoman Chenault.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0 to pass, approve the minutes.
Okay, we will now move to our discussion item. Can we please get a report from staff on item 10A? The fiscal year 23-24 Measure U expenditure review and draft fiscal year 25-26 City of Hemet budget.
Okay, so this is gonna be a team effort today. I'm gonna begin. I'm gonna turn it over to Tiffany after about a dozen slides. And then we'll transition to our police department and our fire department. And then begin to talk about next meeting times and some of what you're going to see unfold over the coming meetings. We can go to the second slide here. So we're gonna take a trip down memory lane to talk about how did we get here in the first place? Why are we a committee? And there's a slide, in a couple of slides, we're gonna talk about what is a general tax versus a special tax. There's a difference. This is a general tax. But a brief background, and you'll see some of the slides are going to illustrate in a visual representation some of the words that you see, and you'll see a pattern come back here and there. But Hemet is a city that was running out of money after the Great Recession, and by early 2010-ish, we were at a point where we sold our garbage franchise off, generated a large check, and then you'll see a slide that saw them kind of erode until 2016, 2017, not that long ago. And at which point in time, due to rising crime issues and other challenges in the city, the chief will talk to you about a document he found while you were cleaning out the building before some investments that are currently underway happened. And tell you a little story about what the world looked like in 2013-14. But this city continued to bleed money until about 2016-17. And we were not in a position to staff the way that then Chief Brown expected in order to address and provide the resources needed to address serious concerns with rising crime and both violent and property crime. And so the city voters voted first on a special tax in June. It narrowly was defeated. Requires a 2/3 vote, a special tax. But they came back in the fall, in November of 2016, with a general sales tax that required a 50% plus one vote, just a majority vote. And they adopted a resolution 4703, this first one that's referenced here, when they placed the item on the ballot. And they said, this is how we intend to invest the dollars. And then when the voters passed this measure with more than 50%, they adopted resolution 4731, which we've got a printout in front of you. And the specific language is what was adopted by the council after passage of Measure U. And what is included in there in this resolution is it provides guidance to the work that you're doing and the report that you're going to provide to the city council eventually. So we're gonna, and then I mentioned in November of 2023, Measure H was approved by the voters, and that took the 1 cent sales tax sunset, which would have been, I think this was initially a 10-year tax. 10-year tax, and took away the sunset, so it's there until or unless the voters decide that it's not needed anymore. Today, Measure U, it generates over $16 million. That's then allocated to police and fire, and we'll talk more about what that looks like. What is a 1%? Think of that as $1 extra on every $100 taxable transaction. So instead of paying $100 at the Stater Brothers, all the taxable goods at the Stater Brothers in Mountain Avenue and Stanford, you pay $100 there. You pay $101 over at State and Stetson on taxable goods. A lot of grocery stores, don't get taxed on all the items. Any questions on this so far? Okay.
Question, we're not going to vote for 2025, 2026 right now, right? Because no.
No.
We're
We're gonna build up to that.
Okay,
We're gonna talk to
alright.
you about what's under development with the budget, and we'll set the table for it, but we have turbulence, and we'll talk to you about 3 factors that are influencing some of that. Okay, next slide. The Citizens Oversight Committee shall annually review and report on number 1, the city's proposed and actual expenditure of proceeds generated by the transaction and use tax. So there's 2 things here, the proposed budget, which is 25-26, and there's also a reference to actual expenditure of proceeds that relates to 23-24. So 2 different years with the current year budget in between. So you're looking backwards and you're also looking forward. And today we're going to spend most of our time talking about backwards, and that's we'll talk to you more about that, and then a little bit moving forward. And number 2, a look at the independent annual audit required under this article. The committee's report shall be submitted to the City Council for review and discussion at a noticed public meeting of the City Council, and shall be made available to the public at least 5 business days prior to such public meeting. The Citizens Oversight Committee shall meet at least twice each calendar year and more frequently if necessary to discharge the responsibilities of the committee. Okay, next slide is the distinction between a general tax and a special tax. A general tax requires a majority vote. This is what Measure U is. It can be used for any purpose. So while the City Council has said we want to use it for police and fire and we'd like to invest 2/3 of it for the police department and 1/3 for fire, that doesn't have to be. It can change at any time. It can change on any given Tuesday, but it hasn't changed since 2016 when the council adopted this reso for the first time, and 2017 when they adopted it for the second time. A special tax requires a 2/3 vote. That was what was tried in June of 2016. It dedicates it specifically for for one specific purpose or multiple purposes, but it's specific and it can't change. So while Measure U could be arguably adjusted, it couldn't be if it was a special tax. And so a special tax is imposed on for specific purposes. So I just want to make sure that we understand that distinction. Next slide. This is where we begin to see, this is a slide that when I go on the road show and talk to the community in different groups about what's the status and what's happening in Hemet. This is part of Hemet's comeback story. This is a remarkable chart. And remember my story about what was happening between 2010 and 2016-17? You don't see 2010, but the numbers were a little higher on the left, and they were just slowly dripping down to the bottom. And I'm glad that Dave Brown, made a call to action because it changed this city in so many different ways. It's not only helped on the public safety side, it's also helped the city financially recuperate from being almost bankrupt, and certainly on a state audit list with clear guidance on how to navigate through a financial crisis. But the blue lines here in this bar graph represent the revenue from Measure U. It began to flow in April of 2017. So one quarter in 2017, 2016, 17, and then for a full year in 2018 and beyond. And we've seen a steady recovery of the city's general fund balance. And today, our June 30, 2024 audited financials are almost done. We're hoping we're a week or two or three away from the final document. We expect to circulate it to you the moment we get it. I think we're maybe 2 weeks out if we're trying to guess. But we'll circulate that to you because that's one of the documents you need to react to. But we have an audit finding that will require us to pay off some liability debt. And that's an example of something that is an item that we're working on in the final review of this document. What you see on the numbers to the left of the chart is that the reserve balance started at $7 million back in 2015. And today, this is the rainy day fund for the city. The city's policy until last year was to set that at 20% of our operating budget. And a year ago, actually about a year and a half or two ago, the council said, at the end of 2024, we'd like to change that to 40%, which is, if you ask the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, what's the number, what's the right number? Their policy is 18%. So the city's policy was 20, and now you see that the council has increased that to 40%. They clearly want to make sure that we don't fall, we don't find ourselves in a difficult spot down the road. So our rainy day fund has jumped from 9.2 million in 2023, the close of 2023's fiscal year, to now approximately $21 million. But which is remarkable, right?
Yeah.
The ability to be there. If you take a look at other cities around the state, you may find that the entire general fund on a city that's twice as large as us may not be $21 million. But what you see in the total column is the combination of the revenue in the general fund reserves as well as the Measure U reserves. So the Measure U reserve has grown, and we've been putting a lot of these dollars to work, which is why what you see at the end here is that yellow bar is starting to go down a little. And that's a reflection of some of the investments that the city council has made in economic development and particularly road maintenance in the last 2 years. We've been augmenting road maintenance and paving to the tune of about $2 to $5 million each supplemental on top of what we've done. We've actually done $24 million of paving in the last 2 years. We did $5 million of paving in the prior 2 years. That doesn't count Florida. Florida is a Caltrans project, and Caltrans invested $50 million paving Florida. So Hemet has seen $74 million of paving in the last 24 months. So hopefully we all feel, that investment. And at the same time, I will tell you, sadly, our roads still need tens of millions of dollars. And it's probably the number is getting worse because the cost of maintenance is astronomical and escalating. But this is the story of what Measure U has done for this community. And we'll hear more from the police and fire department in particular about some of the investments that the city's been able to make. And more importantly, what's it doing to crime, right? As the community's investment in this extra dollar paid off, and how? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Resolutions 4703 and 4731 are essentially the same language, but let's focus on 4731, the second one, because that's what guides the work that you do. And so under these bullet points, the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 refer to sections within the resolution. But when we look at the guidance provided by 4731, the council has requested that we dedicated 100% of the tax to enhancing public safety. And there's a lengthy definition of what are eligible expenses in the document. The council has, this resolution requires us to review an expenditure plan. That's next year's budget. So we'll be doing that at a subsequent meeting, but we're going to provide you a preview of the challenges. The tax proceeds shall be allocated 2/3 to the police department and 1/3 to fire. We should maintain an existing 72% in the general fund appropriations to police and fire. So before we adopted Measure U, 72% of the dollars from the city were invested in police and fire. And sometimes, in order to prevent the city from taking new tax money to supplement work that was already happening, they said, let's make sure that we maintain that existing investment in police and fire and add this new money to help them even more. And so that's what they did. There's a maintenance of effort requirement in 4731. And finally, mandatory staffing ratio of 1.2 sworn officers per 1,000. We're going to talk about this because we've never met this obligation. And we'll talk to you about, we've done some additional, we gave this committee a lot of additional thinking last year. We will expand it a little bit this year. But there's a lot of reasons why it's been very challenging financially to actually get it, and we'll talk more about that beginning in the next slide. So right now we have 91 sworn police positions, and we have about 91,000 residents. So we have an officer ratio of 1.0 per officers per 1,000. And the aspiration of this resolution was 1.2. But there are multiple factors impacting the staffing ratio, and we'll talk in the next slide about what those are. So we're going to see the first bullet point illustrated in a remarkable chart that Tiffany's going to share, that we'll share in a few slides. But CalPERS, which is our pension fund that is provided to all the employees, they expect to earn a return on their investments, right? They have in order to make money, they need to earn more than 6%, 6.8% on their money. They earn 6% on their money, they've lost money. The fund has lost money. And what happens when the fund loses money? They come to their member agencies like the city of Hemet, and they ask us to pay more to restore the solvency of the state's pension fund. So while all of the public employees in the room and teachers appreciate that, it does cost us money. When we'll see this slide, the discount rate used to be 7.5% when Measure U was conceived. When the whole idea was started, the discount rate was 7.5%. And it's been metering down slowly over the last 10 years. And it's today at 6.8%. CalPERS doesn't talk about this as much at conferences these days, but a couple of years ago, they had ambition to take that down to 6% to reduce their risk. We want to make sure that Mr. Clark gets his pension payment, right? The future retirees want to make sure that we get our pension payments, right? So it does improve the solvency of the fund when they reduce the discount rate. It's not a bad thing, but it makes it harder for the member agencies to deliver goods, services, et cetera, and staff to solve challenges. We're going to take a look at a chart that will demonstrate that in, I believe it's 4 of the last 5 years, CalPERS has lost money on their investments, and you'll see about a 20-year horizon of their investment performance. We have to pay, we have a composite of what we call classic employees hired before 2013, and employees hired after 2013. The newer employees are referred to as PEPRA. The state of California needed to enact pension reform because the investments the changes that were made in 1999 and 2000 to grow the value and the benefits associated with public pensions became too much for the state's budget and local budgets to really absorb. And so by 2013, following the Great Recession, the state changed the rules and added a different retirement formula for our newer employees. Now we today have more newer PEPRA employees than we have classic employees, yet our pension costs are continuing to rise. Because by 24, 25 right now, if they hadn't changed the discount rate, we would have seen those numbers drop. But because the discount rate has gone down and they've shared more of that responsibility for us, we haven't hit the top of we haven't the cost of the classic employees hasn't peaked yet. It's smoothing out. We're about at the top. But we're still trying to climb to the top. And then we'll see it decline a little bit and the community will have more resources after that point in time. In 2015, the composite safety percentage, this is a percentage of base salary. We were investing 47% of our payroll and of our base salary for our safety members, police and fire, and 27% of our miscellaneous to sustain their pensions. In the last 10 years, that's grown to 66% for safety and 42% for miscellaneous. But if we had gone back in time to 2005, I'm willing to bet you, because the city of Napa, which is exactly the same as the city of Hemet, same population, same number of fire stations, in-house police and fire, same methodology. We went to 2.7 at 55. I sat in on that closed session. Our safety numbers were about 30. We were just breaking above 30. And our miscellaneous numbers were about 15. We were headed to 16, 17, 18. So even if we go back farther in time than 2015, these numbers were lower. So I asked Tiffany to run some calculations to tell me if we had the 2015 CalPERS numbers and we applied those numbers to today's budget, how many dollars would we have available to help address that staffing ratio? To provide more services to the community. The answer was over $8 million of money has been transferred essentially from services to the pension obligations that are needed in order to maintain the solvency of the pension fund. Those are significant dollars, and that's exactly why the state of California had to deploy the pension reform. But these are big numbers that would have had a significant impact on our community. It's possible, the last two bullet points here, it's possible that the compensation in 2016, remember, we were running out of money. We probably weren't paying market rates. And even if we were, the job is, we're finding fewer applicants for both police and fire jobs, and even on our side. We've had a challenge in recruiting. It's a tough job that the men and women of our departments do. And in order to pay a competitive wage, which the council enacted in the current year through negotiations with our bargaining groups and research, we brought our entire employees, police, fire, and all the miscellaneous up to a market median. It's not a market median plus, it's not a below market median, it's market median. It's competitive. And some of the growth that you saw in that chart reflected the fact that our employees, some of them were over or more than 30% below market. We were losing the younger employees, all the Pepper employees. They were leaving Hemet and they were going to other agencies because their pension is the same regardless of where they go. But they were being paid maybe 30% or more below market, and they were leaving. And that was creating some problems for us because we have a group of public works employees in particular that were ready to retire. And we needed that group to be able to learn the ropes and take over for the employees that are retiring. But what kept the older employees here was the classic pension. We have a very generous pension formula of 2.7 at 55. And for the classic tier twos, people that weren't here in 2013 that came later like me, but had prior service credit, my formula is 2.5 at 55. It's a little bit lower. See,
There's a few of us that are dinosaurs at 3 at 50.
that's a nice formula. The final bullet point here is equipment to support enhanced staffing. This is referring to a police vehicle, it's about $100,000 today. I think Ryan and I would, Chief Webb and I would tell you with fire apparatus, we were just at Pechanga on Friday, receiving a generous donation from Pechanga of a fire engine. They were replacing it with an engine that they spent 1.6 at the time, 1.2 well, they bought it for 1.2, but I think the new one is 1.6 or 1.8. They bought it about 2 or 3 years ago, but they've been waiting for it for maybe 4 years because the fire engines are about 4 years in arrears. from a delivery standpoint, but another agency brought the same engine for how much? It cost several $100,000 more. I think for Menifee is getting a new engine, and Pachanga made a good financial decision. They bought it, they paid the money early. It was being delivered, and we were helping them with their delivery by taking their old engine. And we're gonna put it into reserves at no cost to the HIMA taxpayers. So that was a really nice moment on Friday.
It might go into a frontline status.
And it's possible that it will be deployed because once it gets its black stripe on the side, because it has fewer miles. Remember, it was
Yeah.
Pachanga, right? They didn't have to travel too many distances, not a lot of calls for service. But it has fewer miles than the existing apparatus that's serving the community.
And we're in the same boat. We ordered 2 fire engines in early 2022 that have not been delivered. They're scheduled for delivery in October of this year. We paid just over 800,000 for each of those engines, and they're about 1.2 million today
Wow.
with a 4-year build time.
And we also this past year purchased a truck, which is it's the tiller on the back, right?
Tractor drawn tiller apparatus.
Okay.
It's the one that has a big long ladder and then the person in the back driving.
And so we were able to buy this for a better value than the open market because it was essentially a demo truck. And we're still waiting for it, but we're looking forward to its arrival because it will improve our response times. But the point is with this last bullet is the equipment is becoming very expensive and it's not stopping. And there seems to be, I think some of the fire staff and I have looked at an article about investment funds that are buying fire engine manufacturers, and they're working to make them more profitable, right? So it's costing more money. The next slide is the reference to the CalPERS discount rate performance, their investment performance. This is a little hard to see, but on the line, the horizontal line that goes through the middle, that is intended to approximate the discount rate. And so it's hard to see that. You'll see a different slide that will show you the next slide actually is going to show you that a little bit better. But that line is important to track because if you look at you see the Great Recession in 2009, that was the big dip following 1 year of dip. But 2.9, the discount rate was 7.5%, 7.75% back in 2006 or 2007. And when they lost 2.9% the following year, they actually lost 2.9 plus 7.75. It was a double digit loss because you have to add in the 7.75. It's not just a 2.9. So that 23.6% beating that was really more like a 30% beating on top of a 10% beating. And so that wiped out, that's what led to pension reform in 2013. But let's take a look at what's happened in the last 5 years. So in 2024, which you don't see here, we're grateful that CalPERS eked out a return of about 9.2, 9.3%, somewhere in there. So they're above the 6.8%. That means they made money. That means we save money in future years. But in 2023, 5.8%, we're happy they earned some money, but they didn't earn 6.8%. That means that we're going to eat some of that burden. The prior year, 6.1%, again, they didn't meet the number. Add that 6.1% to 6.8%. It was actually a 12.9% loss. One good year in the last 5 years is the 2021 number. That performance actually led CalPERS to change their discount rate from 7 to 6.8%. It was a formula, it was a trigger, and it dropped it. And then they suspended that trigger for now. But in 2020, 4.7%, and even in 2019, 6.7% is actually a loss on their pension fund. They didn't hit what was then a 7.5%, I'm sorry, 7.7% number. But this is a good chart because it shows you that 4 out of the last 5 years have been very challenging years, and the discount rate has changed. But the next slide is even more interesting because this tells you the story of our pension challenge. Next slide. So I want to draw your attention to the red line on the chart. That red line represents the discount rate reduction. So you see it a little more clearly in this chart than the prior chart. But it started off at 7.5% in 2015. Remember, in the prior chart, it was even higher in prior years. So it's been sliding down, reducing risk for CalPERS, but increasing costs for City of Hemet citizens. And what should have peaked about 24, 25, we see that the numbers are continuing to increase. So what used to cost us $6 million, $6.7 million for pensions in 2015 now cost us $17.4 million in 2026. The total growing from, if you add in OPEB, which is, think of this as post-employment benefits for our retirees, these numbers are pretty static. They've grown a little bit, but that's really related to healthcare costs because most of our OPEB is some healthcare dollars that are paid to our retirees that most of the current employees will never have access to. It's a benefit that's been discontinued. So we're not seeing that really grow. No, none of yours.
No, even my good percentage rate, I did not get medical.
So it's an expensive benefit for the city. The good news is it's also peaking and it probably won't grow much more, but it will depend partly on the cost of health insurance. And I'm afraid that everyone in Hemet lives for a very long time around here. So.
Well, there is
It's
Medicare,
good news and bad news, right?
you know,
Yes.
and there is Pfizer.
Question,
Yes.
did the state ever go and pass a law that does not allow them to take money out of the CalPERS? Remember back in the day when CalPERS was making bucks?
Yes.
And the state stole the huge amount and has never paid it back. Is that, are you aware, did they ever make a law that slaps their hand and says, no, you can't do this?
Yes, they did. And it was a voter proposition. This is when the League of California Cities decided to go political really for probably the first time. And they decided to open a political action committee and raise money to run a ballot measure in partnership with counties and special districts. And what they said is, and what Mr. Clark is referring to is that in the mid-90s, in the early recession in the 90s, the state was in such dire straits that they used the local government as the piggy bank. And they took property tax, they called it the triple flip, but they basically took property tax, gave it to schools to meet some minimum guarantees under Prop 98 for schools. 40% of every dollar goes to schools, good for schools. Wanted to make sure the schools were good. But the money that was taken from local government property tax was never given back to local government. And it was the number one issue in 96, 97. And I was with the league at that time. I worked there between 95 and 97. And I worked with finance directors. I assure you, we all wanted that money back. And we were yelling and screaming about it. And then the .com took off, right? And CalPERS was experiencing earnings of 30% on their investment portfolio for multiple years. And they didn't need any money from us. And that led to this discussion by 1999 of moving from 2% at 50, a nice formula, to 3% at 50, which is basically a 50% increase in the pension value for public safety. And then adding, moving from 2.0 at 55 to 2.7 in Hemet's case for miscellaneous non-safety staff. That's about a 30%, 33% increase in pension value. And so unfortunately, that was unsustainable. That's what led to, the Great Recession and the realities of the budget forced pension reform, which is where we are today. But unfortunately, they developed amnesia in the late 90s.
Forgot where that came from.
Because they pursued that political action committee, raised some money, they took a ballot measure, which I'm forgetting the name of this proposition. If anyone knows it, share. But it said you can borrow, but you can't take. If you have a problem in the future, state of California, and frankly, we need to keep an eye on the state right now. If they have another year of what they've experienced this year, we're gonna have to keep an eye on them because they may want to borrow some property tax from local governments. But what the state proposition says, you can borrow up to twice in any 10-year period. They haven't borrowed in 10 years, so they can do this. You can borrow, but you have to repay the local agencies with interest. And pay us back before you borrow again. And you can't do it more than twice in a 10-year period. So we still are vulnerable. We would probably go out and get a loan, unfortunately at a higher interest rate, to sustain the year or two or whatever it would take to help the state get back to solvency. But it's great that we do have that protection put into place by voters. Next slide. This is another visual representation of the growth. This is when we talked about the 47 and the 27. This is the changes that have occurred each year since 2015. Interestingly, on the safety side, the projection for 26 is lower than 25. So that can be a number of factors. It can be, you know, how many people in our retiree pool are alive. And it can also be somewhat related to the performance. And then on the miscellaneous side, continuing to grow. It's been a little bit higher in the past, but we're not completely out of the woods yet on this. There will be a brighter day down the road, but it's probably now when we did some forecasting recently, it's still about 10 years out, still pretty far out right now before we see a precipitous drop in the cost of the pensions.
Okay.
Now we're going to turn it over to Tiffany.
We're gonna get started into the financial piece of everything. And how we present it is we compartmentalize it to where we're going over prior year, current year, and future year. So there's a lot going on, so we'll try and keep it organized. The next slide here that you're looking at is kind of the allocation methodology for the current year, 24-25. Where we have our general fund allocations that come in, and then the Measure U, which makes up that big box on top. So we started out with about 75.6 million. That does get divvied out. So the general fund allocation, which was 59 million, that gets split 72% to public safety and then 28% to the rest of the general fund. So the 72% then is further broken down into 2/3, 1/3 split for police and fire. So you'll see that allocation methodology there. Now the Measure U is what does stay with all public safety. So that is just directly split 2/3, 1/3. So when everything's said and done, the allocation of 72-28 really isn't realistic, because in actuality, it's a 79-21% allocation between public safety and non-public safety for all general fund allocations. So this is how we started this current fiscal year. The next slide. This is the review of our prior fiscal year. And typically at this meeting, we would have the ACFR available for review. But it's been a very unusual year, so we are a little delayed in getting that out. And it should be done, it will be done by the end of the month. So within the next couple of weeks, we will have that to you guys to review. That is part of the process of what the Measure U Citizens Oversight Committee is to review that ACFR. But this, even though we don't have the audited results, these are the finalized numbers for Measure U. And as you see, we started the year at $19.3 million, or about $19.4 million. And that was allocated between police and fire. And then the revenues we received were at about 16.1 million, and that is split 2/3 police and 1/3 fire. And then the expenditures we break down so that you can see what gets spent on salary and fringe benefits. So that's any of our personnel cost. And then the operating supplies and services, which we also just call as our M&O, our maintenance and operating costs. And that can be anything from professional services to contracts, supplies, safety equipment, anything along those lines. And then we also have our internal service charges, which all departments pay into to fund the internal service funds, which could be anything like general admin, which would be the city manager, finance, HR. We have fleet equipment replacement for, or I'm sorry, IT for their computers, servicing are the computers. So those charges are what fund those internal services. And then we have capital outlay, which is anything that is like a large investment of, normally it's major machinery and equipment, can be a police truck. In some of the instances here, the police department did purchase some flock cameras, and license plate readers. That's part of that capital outlay. So when all the expenditures that you have your beginning fund balance, you add in your revenues, you deduct your expenditures, and we have the change in the fund balance, which was overall about $500,000. And then that drops into our ending fund balance about 18.9. The fund balance is broken down in Measure U. It's all committed basically because it has special requirements for any of that revenue or fund balance. But the non-spendable piece are prepaid items, and you'll see police has about 238,000, and then fire has 1.7. Those actually make up. There's a Motorola lease that was a 10-year lease we purchased ahead of time. So even though the cash has gone out the door, we still have to expend it over years. And that's the same situation with the fire engines that we purchased. We paid for it, but we have to expend it over each year, a depreciation methodology each year. So that is it's earmarked for non-spendable. And then everything else is committed. But what we do is we want to make sure that we're fully transparent so you can see what is actually the 20% reserve, and then what is the remainder committed balance. And that's really the amount that is available for the departments to use for their spending. So that is that slide. Now we jump into our current year budget. And this is budgeted, so it doesn't have any actuals where we're at year to date. It's just where we started the year. So we have the beginning fund balance at about 18.9, which is where we ended on June 30th, 24. And then what we're projecting revenues to be at 16.5 million. That is also split proportionately 2/3 police, 1/3 fire. And then the amended expenditure budgets, which you will see are a lot larger, but those included continuing appropriations, which are items that are carried forward year to year that haven't been fully expended yet. A lot of that can be capital improvement projects like the police facility upgrades. They're not completely done yet, so the money has been reserved, so we just need to carry it forward each year. So that's what is considered a continuing appropriation. And then throughout the year, if there's anything that council has approved for the use of fund balance in the Measure U, that also impacts those totals there. So estimating, we're looking at about $13.8 million of an ending fund balance as of this fiscal year. And just keep in mind that those are true estimate right now. The way that we do it is we are considering that we're going to receive all of the revenue that we have projected, and we're going to spend everything that we have budgeted, which isn't always the case. And that's how we've ended up with a large fund balance over the years, is that we haven't been able to expend all of the expenditures within that same year. And then that's how it gets carried forward as a continuing appropriation. And then we rerun it down in future years. So, and then the fund balance breakdown is depicted there of how it's going to be broken down in between police and fire. The 20% reserve requirement, which is really the rainy day fund. And then the committed, which is available, we have 8.6 for police and about 950,000 for fire. And again, these are just estimates at this time. This time next year, when we go into this meeting is when we'll actually have all the finalized numbers and you'll review all of that in more detail. The next slide.
Oh, sorry, can I have a question? For the 21.5 million, is that's money that is put aside for future facilities? Like 13 for police and 7.9 for fire?
It's their budgeted expenditures.
Oh, but it's
So-
not for facilities or any, like you.
No,
Okay.
well, it can be. It does include facility upgrades for the
Uh-huh.
police department. So it's the actual, because when you start out a budget, you have your revenue and then you budget your expenditures
Right.
and those have to equal. And then what happens is we carry forward the unexpended money that is already earmarked for projects, which do include facility upgrades.
Okay, got it.
So we're carrying that budget forward as well, so that stacks kind of on top of
Got it.
that year. So that's what you're seeing. So it makes up a lot of different things.
Different, yeah.
Now, the majority of fire, just to mention it, is theirs mainly goes to personnel cost. Because they have the smaller portion of Measure U, it really pays for just personnel costs. Where police, they have a little more capacity to where they can do more larger capital improvements.
Got it. Because that was approved by council.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So moving into next year, we do have some considerations in there, actually, more so challenges. So there are 3 significant challenges that we're looking at that are impacting the budget. The city has invested in staff compensations to be brought up to market average. So that alone has an impact to the general fund of $7 million. So bringing that has brought an ongoing cost that we need to consider, which has presented some challenges for us in this next coming year. The second item is that, and we'll go into a little more detail, is our liability. We've had significant increases to the liability premiums and the deductibles. And we'll go into that in a more detail in the next couple of slides. And then our sales tax, which is the main revenue generator that supports the whole city's operation, is slowing down. So going into the next year, this is our 3rd challenge that we're facing. And to add on top of that, we're in an uncertain economy right now with with a new president. And we're looking at tariffs, and we have our own electric vehicle requirements for the state. So automobile sales are a main generator for revenue. And with those looking at declining, that will have a significant impact in the city's operation. So the next slide, we find it helpful to share the breakdown of the things that are the cost drivers that are significantly different in this next year compared to what is in current year. So I'll go over like the first, it's about the first 6. And what we did is when we first initially started building this budget, we took a true look at the impact of moving those items that we were using as one-time expenses and dropping them in as a true ongoing cost. And that would be, we did use some one-time funding for liability. We implemented a vacancy factor, so that we need to take into account that we will need to fund that ongoing. CityNet was another item that we used one-time fund balance for. That actually is an ongoing cost. So that's another consideration that going into next year, we're going to have to determine what will happen with that. So we like to sort it high to low. So it gives a better visual representation of where the funding is going. So over the past 2 years, we're looking at $5 million of a liability increase for premiums. And this actually breaks down to 1.8 million that was or it's an increase of 1.8 million for next year that we're looking at. And then the current year, 3.2 million that we had to use one-time fund balance for. So we're looking for an additional $5 million. The vacancy factor was 3.1 million. So this is something that we're going to have to account for on an ongoing basis. The liability, we had to budget for an increase of excess claims. So we increased that at 1.7 million. So that is a cost driver that we're looking at into next year. And then the city net, which was previously paid for out of one-time use of fund balance, is going to have to be paid out of one-time our ongoing cost, ongoing operational costs. And that's another 1,026,000. And then we have the annual unfunded liability for CalPERS, which is the future cost of retirements that the city is on the hook for. So this is an item that we can't avoid. There's no way around it. And that, as the years progress, and Mark has spoke about CalPERS and our unfunded liability and our OPEB costs, those do increase for us. So that's an additional $1 million that we're going to have to pay for that. And then just our regular step increases in the 3% COLA that we have built into the contracts right now, we're looking at an additional $1 million of funding. So like I said, these are just like the main cost drivers that are impacting the next year as we move into that. Now, liability insurance, this next slide is a good graphical representation of where we were only a matter of years ago for a premium and a deductible. So we were at about a $500,000 premium with a $250,000 deductible per incident. And as we moved along, we faced some challenges and we were dropped by our carrier, which forced us to find a new carrier at the beginning of this fiscal year. And then looking into next year, we're looking at a $6.5 million premium with a $6 million deductible for safety per incident and a $2 million deductible for non-safety per incident. So it's a significant increase in costs that the city is facing. And it honestly is funds that should be spent towards better things to improve the city instead of going towards liability insurance premiums and deductibles. So it's very unfortunate, but we are to get us out of this situation. We're already working very closely with our insurance carriers and with our broker. We need about a good 2 to 3 years of no catastrophic claims that put us at a higher risk exposure. And I know that the chief is going to go into more detail, but we have done some tremendous improvements in technology and staff and training that are mitigating this liability. So we're doing everything that we possibly can to get this liability insurance issue flipped back around to where it's not so catastrophic, really, at this point in time.
I'm gonna expand on Tiffany's comments a little bit. This is unprecedented. The significant increase that you hear here is an unprecedented increase that came with a 90-day, maybe a 92-day notice. They had a requirement in our contract to notify us within, it had a 90-day provision. So we looked up the date yesterday and it was March 29th last year. We had already set into motion our labor strategy with our bargaining groups. We were down the road with negotiations. And then our insurance premium, we had to go shopping frantically at the last minute while still negotiating contracts. And that led to a premium increase of $3.2 million and an enormous enhanced exposure. There's been a wealth transfer. If there were claims rolling in the door, what previously was paid by insurance, almost every claim is now being paid by the city of Hemet in the current year. Now, the good news is to date, everyone needs to walk on. We're at only 2.35 million? We're at 2.35 million year to date. that probably all would have been paid for by the insurance company, except for the first 250, right? In just 18 months ago.
Well,
So we're
what's the insurance cover?
They cover claims between 2 million and 25 million
Oh,
on non-safety issues, and then 6 million and 25 million on everything else. And so we used to have coverage up to 50 million, but we made some calculated decisions and also some budget, with some budget considerations. And we did have a $25 million claim that was paid out under a prior insurance company. About 7-8 years ago, it was a crosswalk incident. And that's part of our history, right? And we also have some, what's the right term? We have some incidents, we talked about a term today, resistance, right?
Yeah.
Resistance to something, but who's gonna look it up?
Yeah.
But we've had some other claims that contributed to a decision by Cal JPIA, our former broker, to separate with us. We're confident that we're making the investments that we need in technology, in training, in maintaining and insistence on high quality applicants citywide to mitigate claims, as Tiffany was saying. But this has changed the risk profile for that beautiful general fund surplus we've worked so hard to get. It's going to potentially erode that quickly, right? One claim can erode a lot of this under the new rules that we have in place. So we have put a lot of effort into discussions and efforts to reduce risk, and we'll continue to do that. But this is a really important slide. It's part of our emerging story, and we look forward to trying to reduce the cost of the premiums as well as the exposure on the deductible. I will say we're not the only city that's experiencing this. So we know when we talk to our colleagues in our insurance broker that this is a common story. You see this also, you see the insurance challenges with people that have property in high fire risk zones, which are seeing substantial increases in insurance. Something I think macro level needs to be done to probably address this risk and help us deliver services and goods to our community, infrastructure, et cetera. But this is a current contemporary challenge that is a big one for us.
It's response to resistance.
Response to resistance.
That 90-day notice, that was kind of a punch in the gut. Is our current contract, did we
I think
expand that
our
notice?
current contractor loves us, right? Because we're paying for the first 2 million of every claim and 6 million for every public safety claim. And on top of that, we're paying $3.2 million more than we did in the prior year. And we'll be paying a total of 5 million more than we did 2 years ago.
Wow.
So we're good customers.
Yeah, we were in a pool before, so that's how we got better rates, and we got a lot more services included with that, the JPIA. When they dropped us, we shopped everywhere, and no one would really take us. So we, with our current broker, who the city's been with in the past, we went back to them. And so they reached out, and we have 3 different insurance carriers. So we don't have a pool anymore. We just deal directly with 3 different layers of coverage. So, and the chief actually got to meet with, was it 2 of the carriers at the Parma. And I can let you know too that the broker, he's been fantastic to work with. And he's let us know that we're doing everything right to get us out of this situation. It's just going to take time to get those old claims to fall off and make sure we keep a good record moving forward. So, I mean, it's on the horizon. It's just getting there. It's going to be the bumpy road.
You said it's about 3 years to get.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years. So we're going on 2 years now. So hopefully.
Well, how do you get $25 million up of a crack in a sidewalk? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Be surprised.
That was an incident in a crosswalk.
Oh,
where
that's
some-
Crosswalk. I thought you said sidewalk.
Right, crosswalk, and someone was injured and
And it was the city's fault?
well, it was determined by a jury and an award was given.
Wow.
And so it was an expensive incident. And it's part of the portfolio history, right?
Yeah.
That is considered when we go shopping, but it is one of those very rare, unusual, extraordinary cases that we would consider hopefully once in a lifetime, right? Just don't want to see those happen. And that's where why we have $25 million of coverage. The concern that keeps me up at night is what happens if it's something north of 25 million, right? We're covered between, let's say it's 6, it's a public safety issue, we're covered between 6 and 25, but we're self-insured above 25. That means it's the general fund and all the goods and services and
Wow.
equipment and people that are and infrastructure that's at risk if an award is given above $25 million.
So that's why we need to lobby for ceilings on these claims. Because they're going to bankrupt cities across, I mean, California especially, someone can trip and fall and break an ankle and it will, the city will have to pay out 20.
Well, there's a limit what you can get for suing a doctor,
Mhm.
it's up to 250,000. That's it. But so
We're-
there's nothing for cities, apparently.
We
No,
are
not here.
having some
Not
preliminary,
California.
we are having some preliminary conversations with legislators about the idea of working with other local agencies that feel that there some form of a ceiling may be reasonable. Doesn't need to be extremely low. I mean, people do have legitimate injuries and claims that deserve compensation, but there's a balance somewhere out there that we hope will remove the risk to the entire community. That shouldn't have to see their streets, dollars go somewhere else. If there's still enough money to compensate that individual or person or situation.
That's a big concern. I'm gonna be thinking about that.
Keeps me up at night. So my last slide is the transparency measures that the city's taken. I've been here since inception for Measure U in the finance realm of everything. So I know that everything has been spent according to all of the guidelines within the ordinances. But to make it more transparent to the public, we've posted the detailed reports of all expenditures. So anybody can see exactly where all of the money has gone. Of course, there may be some interpretation that if someone were to look at it, they would need to understand, well, what does this mean? If it's a vendor name, what type of product was purchased or anything. That's where we're here to help. So this one just lets you know where you can find the transparency reports, and it's going to have all of the expenditure detail reports, all of the revenue detail reports. And then we also do update a quarterly comparison report. So you can see where we're at this time, this year and current year versus where we were in prior quarters in previous years. And my promise to you is to make sure that I send you an email with a link for where you can find these transparency measures, along with, oh, shoot, it just escaped my mind. What was my other promise?
I think her.
Oh, just afterwards, maybe.
Oh, the actor,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. Yeah. But yes, I will make sure that I get this information out to you. And I will, when I send it, I will probably most likely do blind carbon copies to everybody so that there's no risk of you replying all and us all getting trapped in the Brown Act violation. And with that, I would like to turn everything over to our esteemed police chief.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, some of these I may take a little longer just to explain so you guys, if you have any questions, please ask anytime. So the city manager was talking about the trend with crime and whatnot. I think Gene and I were kind of discussing the perception, I'm sure you guys have friends and family that you hear the perception.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Exactly, and I'm completely opposite, right? So we got to change that. That's my goal. I know the city's doing a lot of things, but on my end, I need to change that. So we need to get out there. But It's a complete opposite. So if you look at this here, up here is property crime. It goes back to 2012 up to this last year. This is, I have projected up there because we have not received the statistics for crime, violent and property from the FBI, basically statistics yet. They don't come out until almost June. And when that does come out, I'm planning on doing a council meeting so the public can hear this as well. So go back to 2012, you'll see that it's a drastic increase, over 4,000 per 100,000. And it's just going straight up. It hit 2013, it went down some. But it's just 2015 it peaked. I think that's when Chief Brown then was out there already lobbying for this. What are we gonna do? You know, and then the measure came up and it was approved in 2016. And we didn't start seeing the monies till about 2017, as you saw on the graph earlier. And ever since then, this is the good news. It's just continuing to trend downward. 2020, that was, you see the drastic drop, but you know, we had COVID that year. Not sure, nobody knows really how to explain that. A lot of people were staying home. So I know a lot of the burglaries went down and whatnot. What did increase that year was domestic homicides, unfortunately, that year, because, you know, we're all cooped up in the houses with each other. But since then, we're continuing to trend downward. 2020 was continuing to go down, 2022, slightly upward. And then so 2024, last year, you see, we really had a pretty good drop from 2020 to 2024. That's what we want to see. And I think I know that's going to continue that way. That has to do with the boots on the ground, the equipment we've been purchasing, the technology, that's huge. The world is changing with technology. We'll talk about some of those things. If you have questions on that, please ask. You see the property crimes includes burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft. And so you see that drop from last year. Our larcenies went up. Larceny is just a fancy word for thefts. And I prepped the city manager last year telling him that's going to go up. I guarantee you it. And that's a good thing though, because we're going to make a lot more arrests for the thefts. We had the organized retail theft grant come in. So we have our team out there doing these operations with the stores. They built these reports with the stores. They're actually reporting these now. They're not just letting them walk out the door. So that's why it's increasing. So that's a good trend, actually. I'll go on. Any questions on that? I'll go on to the next slide. This is your violent crime here. Again, going back to 2012. You see some big fluctuation there, but I think, I mean, you can really see what happened in 2015 and 2016. And these are your homicides, rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults. We need to do something. We need some kind of change in Emmett. That's how Measure U came about. Again, we're trending downward. A slight influx in 2022, but again, we're continuing to trend downward. I don't think I talked about, so in the blue, that's us. California's in the orange, and nationwide is United States is in the gray. I can't wait to get these stats back for the FBI in June. That way we can see it. I can go out there and say, hey, look at, now we're below not only state, but we're below national average. Come on, no one's saying that about Emmett, right?
No, they're saying all bad stuff.
We'll change that.
Yeah.
Next slide, crimes against persons. So we have an annual report. This is just some real quick statistics here. This goes back to 2020. You'll see we have homicides listed, rape, robbery, aggravated assaults, and then we have total crimes against persons. Most of those, you go all the way to the right, you'll see the change. We had an increase in one of those categories, which was rape, 11.5, but everything else you're seeing a decrease in, anywhere from 14.2% to 5.8%. That's all positive. Any questions?
Well, yeah, okay, the rapes, are there, is it just some woman walking down the street and getting raped, or where'd the rapes coming from?
That could be anything. That's why it's so hard you can't target. How do we target,
Yeah,
how do we stop rapes? If it was women walking down the street, then we have a serial rapist and then we would handle that. It could be a lot of things. And some of these, it could be that this year in 2024, why it went up, it happened, but they didn't report it till 2024. We can't control that. So, so you see, you don't want to see an increase in anything, but
well, that's just kind of bizarre though, that's what increased is the
Yeah.
rapes
yeah.
and not the other stuff went down.
On to the property crimes. We have burglary, larceny again, that's theft, vehicle theft, and so you have your totals. you'll see some great stats here. I mean, some of these burglaries, they went from 446 in 2020 to 157, 60.55% decrease.
Wow.
I mean, that's
That's
amazing.
great, yeah.
That's something to tell your residents, right? And future residents when they're coming to town. Larcenies, there's your thefts. We increase in that, and you'll see a little asterisk. It kind of explains at the bottom. It's what I told you guys. It's, you know, our ORT efforts, our, you know, our arrests and whatnot. So that's a trend you want to see in the positive. Vehicle thefts, that's another one that's amazing. 609 in 2020, 233 as of last year. So almost 50% decrease in vehicle thefts. So total, we have 11.2% decrease in overall crimes against property.
Meanwhile, the population.
Population continues to grow. Yeah, so that's another thing. You usually have a graph on that, but you'll see the population going up and the crimes continue to go down.
And may I add something real quick? My husband built that house on Kimball, right here on the white one. When he was building it, his trailer was stolen.
Mhm.
And I told him, make a police report, because he had just bought it, was like $10,000. He
Yeah.
did, he made the police report. And within 2 weeks, they were able to recuperate it.
Yeah.
So we still have it. Yeah.
Maybe the word's getting around that the Hemet police are gonna get you if it's still a car.
Well, they will. And then again, technology like, it's a game changer when we went to these flock cameras. So these are the automated license plate readers. And so we were the first, well, I'll get to it. I'll go
Okay.
before I get off tangent. So here's just a list of things. These aren't all Measure U equipment and projects that it's not all Measure U funded, but I think it's important for you guys to hear this. We went back to 2020. These are some of the big ones. This is when we entered into the contract with Flock, first agency in the county. Now you see them everywhere. Once you know what a flock camera is, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go a mile without seeing a flock camera in the county, which is a good thing. And that's how we're recovering these stolen vehicles so quickly. That is how we're solving crimes. So a little bit on that, in case you don't know, one of the big ones we got when we first got these cameras was a license plate reader. It'll pop up, and if there was a hit in LA County, it was for a homicide suspect. And now it popped up here in Hemet, and so it sends a notification to all the officers here in the area for this license plate. And so we did a vehicle stop when we got the homicide suspect in
Wow.
custody. So that was a quick success story within probably weeks of getting these cameras. The 2021, we went live with Axon. That's BWC, stands for body worn cameras. Again, I think we were one of the first agencies in the county to get the body worn cameras. And Taser 7s at that time, those are the yellow they look like guns on your waistband. I don't carry one anymore. But that was the newest technology at that time. Fully outfitted, same year, fully outfitted police interceptors. That's your black and white patrol cars. Unmarked administrative vehicles, 11 fully outfitted police interceptors. And I'll tell you what, from 2020 to now, the increase in one vehicle is probably about $25,000 just in about 4 years, if not more.
Wow,
Per vehicle.
that's crazy.
Yeah. CSOs, that's our community service officers. So 2 fully outfitted CSO vehicles, 2 fully outfitted unmarked detective bureau vehicles. Really important with these vehicles. In 2020, we started upfitting our cars. Majority of our cars were still Crown Victorias. They weren't making those for about 7 years by that point. All our cars were over 100,000 miles. So they weren't making the parts anymore. It was hard, labor costs. Mechanics are having to work on them a lot more. So this is really important to be able to upfit our fleet and our officers out there. Same year, 2022, we added 8 Flock Condor cameras. So that's part of the Flock company, but these are Condors. These are pan tilt zooms. And so we can actually get on there live and control these cameras. And this is really helping out with the organized retail theft. So we'll have a store call it in when we've done it. I think if you follow our page, you'll see a funny one up there, but I happen to be watching it live on the camera. And I said, you guys need to put that on social media.
That was good.
So, yeah.
Right into what was it, the Walmart, change clothes?
I think Jason Pitt ran across the street and things closed in the store. Yeah.
That's people.
But that's what the Condor, it allows us to do. And we got these in most of our intersections, and we're still installing them.
Is that one of the cameras that caught that guy on the bicycle? That shot those 2 guys walking on the sidewalk?
No, that was a business camera, actually.
Wow, that was some video.
That was a business camera, yeah. And we do have something on that real quick. Every attempt homicide or homicide case we've gotten every suspect in custody so far.
Yeah, you arrested that guy. I know you did.
So launch of the drone as a first responder, that's amazing. That's a big program that's going across the country now. I think Chula Vista is one of the godfathers of it. You know, I think they've got a huge fleet of drones out there. Essentially, this is like our air support unit. You know, when the sheriff's department is around, we'll launch this thing out in the air. They have night vision at night, so it's heat seeking, so we can find people hiding in the bushes and whatnot. And we've had you'll see some posts on our web pages coming out soon of some really good crimes and someone running for blocks and blocks and blocks. And we've kept eyes on them the whole time. We would have never caught this person, but because of this, we
Well,
got.
you know, that the drone center that you have in the police department, everybody should go look at that. I was blown away by it. It is incredible. That drone system I was really impressed.
We're gonna talk about it. I'll put the invite out for sure.
Yeah.
Range facility revitalization, very important. Again, if you don't know, we have our own firearms training range. It's small, but it's great. We've had it forever. A lot of agencies our size do not have it, so they have to pay a company to go out and do their quarterly qualifications and whatnot. So this is amazing to have this. We've actually recruited police officers to our agency because, hey, you have your own range, you know? It's not, LAPD and those kind of agencies, they have their ranges, but. So it's amazing. So we did some revitalization up there, much needed. A Lenco armored rescue vehicle. Same thing, kind of like the fire apparatuses. We ordered this in 2022. We're still waiting for it. And it was all due to, they were making them and shipping the steel but not to Ukraine. So that got put on hold. So we were being told, we're being promised, but I'm not, we'll see what happens. We'll receive it this July. Move on to the next slide, 2024. Launch of real-time information center. That's what Gene was talking about. So we have in a room that like this, about half the size, you'll see televisions all on the wall. You have someone that's sitting there, a pilot for the drone full time, and you'll have one of our crime analysts watching the cameras and controlling it. So when a call for service comes out, she'll get on there and immediately go and start finding the nearest camera and start seeing if we can find the suspect and putting that on the radio so we can catch them. We can do in the future here, we'll do a little tour. PD administration facility upgrade, that's the second floor. That's where my office and many of my command staff is at, and our press information officer. That's being done currently now, set to be completed in August. Police Department Fire Station 1 parking lot rehabilitation, much needed. I think Ryan would agree. That's that hasn't started. We're kind of waiting for Fire Station 1 and our station to be complete so we don't destroy the entire place. Then we'll start that project. Amazing thing we did this year was open the west substation. That was much needed. We're working on the east substation here in the future. 8 marked police interceptor patrol SUVs were put into service this year. 4 marked watch commander expeditions put into service. 1 prisoner transport van, much needed. Ours was aging out, and we still have it, but now we have 1 and we have a backup. 2 Ford Broncos vehicles were received and put into service. That was actually purchased through the organized retail theft grant. And 2 administrative Chevy Traverses. Next slide. Continuing with 2024, 2 admin Ford Expeditions, 4 Ford Mavericks. These we were purchasing Ford Explorers. That was really the only option. And these Ford Mavericks came along and a quarter the price, much cheaper for our community service officers. So a great option. That's the route we went. 1 mobile command center. So if you haven't seen it, this is an amazing piece of equipment. This actually was purchased through ARPA funds. We waited for it for about 2.5 years, but we have it, and it's gonna, it's an amazing piece of equipment. It's very needed when we need it in times of emergency. Personnel transit van, Ford Maverick, another one. And here's another this is huge in the risk mitigation and the insurance and the liability, is this 10-year Axon contract. These are the tasers. So they had new tasers, Taser 10s. It's an amazing, YouTube it, you'll find out why we needed to go to this. But so this is a 10-year contract. We went from our Taser 7s to Taser 10s. We now have in-car dash cameras. So as a department, as a city, we've always been at the forefront of technology. I would say in-car dash cameras is the one area that we failed at. We have never had those. But we are actually currently installing them. We haven't installed in 23 of our vehicles so far. We're gonna do 70 of our vehicles. So we'll have in-car dash cameras as well as prisoner cameras. So that's the cameras you see where you can see the actual prisoners inside the car.
Oh,
Again, so if they make claims, we're covered, it's on camera. Obviously body worn cameras, nothing changes there, but we have AI report writing. It's pretty accurate. It basically takes your, it can take your body worn camera video and what you said on there and it starts writing a report for you.
Wow.
So
yeah, the AI is pretty neat.
yeah. So what does that mean? That means the officers can get on the street a lot faster. They're not sitting there so long writing reports. Virtual reality training. This came with virtual reality training. We're gonna have goggles. We have 4 sets of goggles. We're just putting the program together now. And so that will be a training piece of going for the department as a whole. 2025 approval to surplus. So this just occurred. We just surplus for a couple of those were Crown Victorias that we still had. And so we replaced 4 black and whites with our vehicle replacement funds. Next slide. Actually, JP, you can go to the next, probably pass it, go ahead. There we go. So here, we're gonna talk about staffing levels for the police department. This is what I'm very proud of. You should be proud of, and we need to talk about, so here on the left, you see sworn authorized. I go back to 2000, these are fiscal years 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. This is what we were authorized, 76 in 21, 22. Art came on board and Eddie Poos, you allowed us to 8 more positions we added to the department, which was great. 2023, 24, we went up to, oh, I'm sorry, that was a 90. I'm sorry, that was 90, yeah, in 2022, 24. We added 8 more positions. We're at 91 now. And the 91, the reason why it added that one is because we have 2 temporary part-time civilian investigators. So the 2 part-time equals 1, so that's how you get the 91. I have to remind myself of that.
So how many officers would you like on the police department? I mean, to really fight the crime,
Well, we're doing good with our population, so we're getting there, right? So you got to think of technology and everything too is going to
Yeah.
help out as far as manpower goes. It's a game changer. This is a part I'm proud of here. We've always, so in 2020, you go down to sworn filled, 69 in 21, 22, 78 in 22, 23. That is the highest I had seen it. And the 78 and 77th officer, it went down to 76. We had 78 for probably about a month. And then we had Chief Poos retire and one of our lieutenants, 30 years, served here, Dan Reinbold. And so we were back down to 76. So I say back down to 76 because we have always hovered around 75. For some reason, we cannot. And that was an argument with the citizens saying, you said you were going to go up to this number back in 2016. We're still at the same numbers we were back then. Attrition. That's what people don't think of either. But currently we'll jump to 24, 25. We're at 85 sworn positions filled right now. That is the highest I've seen since 2009. Real quick, what Mark was talking about when we were cleaning out the closets upstairs. Here I found an old piece of, so we have 2013, 2014 police officer staffing levels. This is before Measure U. Budgeted was 44 officers at that time.
that's
That was
what
budgeted.
crime was sky high.
So, but we were in our 30s, yes, and at that time, I'll tell you, we got so bad that it was just patrol and detective bureau. We had no traffic bureau. We had nothing else. We actually had an agreement with California Highway Patrol to handle Florida Avenue to help us out. So it got pretty bad at some point. Professional staff, if you care, there's 31 authorized. We're at 45 now. We almost completely filled every single one of our positions that were authorized in all professional staff, dispatchers, and sworn.
Oh, good.
Which is a great thing. That's what people wanted. I remember being at those meetings for Measure U. Specifically, it was boots on the ground. We want boots on the ground and we want the equipment to go with those boots on the ground. And that's what's occurring today. Any questions on any of those? Next slide. We'll talk about, I think it was really important to bring up the volunteers. Dean was a volunteer with us for how long? 8 years?
8 years, yeah.
8 years. She no longer is now. We miss her.
Yeah, you do.
We did. I miss those conversations in the hallway, but anyways, they don't realize themselves how much of a help they are for our department. when we were, especially when we were short-staffed. So I'll start from the beginning. Before COVID-19 pandemic, we had 87 dedicated volunteers. That was bigger than our police force. So you can imagine how much of a help they were. So they get called out at all times at night, middle of the night, traffic control, babysit kids, when when we're dealing with children and whatnot. Go to the hospital, mail runs,
And
district
we
attorney's office runs.
patrol and give out handicap parking citations. You
Yeah,
know,
so it's a huge help for us, definitely needed. Unfortunately, when COVID hit and we brought it back, probably 2022, the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, we started the volunteer program back up. Everyone was kind of on leave. There was a few that refused to leave and came back to the station, and
no, that
we did have
was one of
some.
them.
Yeah, she was one of them. So we dropped back down to 34. So we're working on that now. Here it says, thanks to the success of our recent volunteer academy classes, we've seen great progress. We're now up to 51. And this happened pretty quickly. So we're really pushing these volunteer classes along again. I think we'll be pretty close to those numbers by the end of this year for sure. If you want to jump to the next one. All right, I wanted to get this in because this is going to be an invitation to all of you who have not, I don't think you need it, but.
No, but I've been to the Citizens
Right,
Academy.
yeah.
It's great.
So the Citizens Academy, I highly recommend you guys attend the Citizens Academy when you have a chance. So we're excited to announce plans for another Citizens Academy right here at the Hemet Police Department. This 10-week program is designed to give community members an inside look at how we operate. You'll hear directly from our experts in such areas as patrol tactics, criminal investigations, SWAT, canine, narcotics, DRO team, gang task force, dispatch, traffic enforcement, use of force, and more. You need to say use of force to respond to resistance. Participants will also take part in hands-on demonstrations, simulation training. So you'll be able to take part in the new taser training with the goggles and whatnot. And police ride-alongs to get a full experience. The next Academy is tentatively scheduled to begin August 20th. So as I said, we'd love to see each of you participate in this when you can. You'll walk away amazed.
You will. You'll be amazed how the department operates. It's like, wow.
Yeah, you won't realize how
Really,
much
wow.
goes into it. You think you do, but until you actually hear every bureau and everything that goes into
Yeah,
it.
it's really, really good.
You said the tasers, was that's virtual, they're not taking a ride.
It's virtual, and you can take a ride if you want. You just have to sign a waiver form, of course. So we definitely need volunteers.
Only once, you only need to do it once.
Unfortunately, I did 4 times. I'll never do it. It's been a while. I'm not gonna do that. I think that's it. The next slide, you'll see department personnel.
That's just current year, what we've have budgeted for the department. And it's categorized by what is funded out of Measure U, and then general fund and non-general fund, which is basically a lot of our grant programs that help fund some of our employees.
Anybody have any questions at all?
I have.
Yes.
What do you attribute the disconnect between the numbers that we're looking at here and the public perception? Do you think we just need time to see the public perception catch up to the numbers that we're seeing here?
You're talking about like the crime statistics and whatnot?
Yeah.
I think I know we need to get out there more often. So, whether that's social media is a huge thing now, platform. So we really need to use the social media platforms. I've got a task for my press information officer of things to do. And she can only do one thing at a time. And she does really well on our social media site. So, we're going to one at a time kind of brag about our technology, our flock cameras, our condor cameras, get that out there, let people know that we have that out there. I think it also makes you feel safer when you know those things are out there.
Definitely.
If you guys have ideas, bring it forward. I always tell citizens, if you have an idea or you need me somewhere or one of my officers to go and talk to a neighborhood or a community, let me know. We'll be out there. I think that's a lot to do with it as well. So, and word of mouth. You guys are here hearing it, and when I say it, please just share that. You hear the opposite.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, definitely online. I mean, when you look up
Yeah,
Hemet,
yeah.
it says how bad the crime has been in the past. So it's one of the things when I was moving here. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Moving from LA out to here, it's like,
No,
it's worse.
it's a real problem. Everybody just constantly bad mouthing him.
Online is not controlled, and that's why I do not like it. I get text messages saying, have you seen this post? Well,
Yeah.
no, I don't follow every group out there. And some I don't want to follow because it's bad. It's not good for you. A lot of it's lies and.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of parroting going on.
yes,
Yeah.
just to be heard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
So
got
if you have ideas, I'll take them for sure.
something on the flock. What we've done here is incredible. My own original department up at the city of Eureka in Humboldt, they refused, the council refuses to even look at it. Every time we get a great thing like the 187 suspect you guys grabbed and just even recently.
I can go on and on about the success story.
I send links up to them, but the politics there have really changed. They're a sanctuary. And it can't get them to even look at it.
Well, it's just gonna destroy the place, is what's gonna happen. Just like Austin, Texas. They, I was just talking to the chief about, because I go out there to visit my granddaughter. They defunded their police and the crime just went sky high. Now they're begging for police to go back. So some of these decisions on these cities is ridiculous, but I'm happy with our city. You know, I think we're doing a great job and I'm always defending them, defending the city to everybody. Oh, no, it's a crime ridden and blah, blah. I said, no, it's not. To be surprised, it's a beautiful city. I actually met a couple once, they bought a house here in Hemet they moved from Murrieta, so they moved here to Hemet because Hemet the people were so friendly and so nice here in Hemet that they just felt at home here. And that's what we need to project to people out there, come to Hemet, or like a really friendly community instead of crime-ridden city.
I will say, we're about to launch, we're launching now. The council has said we want to tell our story. And we're calling it branding, but think of it as more than just a logo. It is about telling the story, and the company we've hired is a very reputable company. They've done a lot of work in Riverside County. They were behind the branding of Indio and their makeover a bit. And I think there's going to be a lot of stakeholder meetings where they're out in the community, and we will want people to participate in that. So your efforts to help encourage participation when you hear about these, and we can share that with you, because a lot of this is happening relatively soon.
Okay.
Will be important because they want to hear comments about what people think and hear and what they envision. And those are the types of things that will go into helping to tell our story. And it will lift up the profile of the city. We will be integrated with design and communication. And all of that will lift up the profile. And, as we lift that up, it tends to increase other good things in town. It should improve property values for property owners. I mean, we're trying to set a good example by investing in our infrastructure. It's one of the reasons we're painting City Hall. Try to encourage other people. Hopefully a little broken window theory here will go a long way. If we paint our building, maybe a few others will decide to do the same thing. But it's going to look sharp, and when we turn the clocks on in the relatively near future, those that remember the clock about 5 years ago, we'll see it again for the first time in several years. So we're excited about that.
Okay. Thanks for having me go when everybody's hungry and wants to go home.
We're your friends. You can go.
I will go quickly because I was only allocated a third of the slides that are. Next slide. So what I'm going to try to do is give you a very, very brief overview of a very, very complex history that your fire department has. As somebody who came from another agency, I will stand from the mountaintops and brag about your firefighters. When the word that comes to my mind is resilient. For those of you who remember back in 2014, there was a potential bid for a CAL FIRE annexation or contracting out. And then they've had some subsequent bad years where they've just really kind of struggled to get the momentum going back up again. But what struck me about all of the adversity that they faced is the attitude that your firefighters have. They love coming to work. They work hard, and they work harder than any firefighters that I've ever seen, and they do it with a lot less, and they do it a lot. We're gonna see here that the call volume statistics continue to rise year out of year, and in a lot of ways we'll dovetail and relate to the story that the PD tells, where Chief Ariano's first slide showed the great work that our cops are doing, and you're seeing a downward trend in the data. This chart ahead of you shows what is inevitable for a growing city, which is inevitable for an aging city, which is inevitable for a successful city. When we generate revenue by tax or sales tax revenue, people need to come into our city to do this. And these are the people that generate the numbers that you see. So in one regard, what we see is a prime example of the city improving. But when we have limited capacity within the fire department to keep up with these calls, we start to see the challenges that we've been facing over the last several years. And the calls for service, as you see back in 2013, 2014, were 13,000, 14,000 calls. And there's been a steady incline every year after year, regardless of the Measure U passage or not. So this is what we do. This is the driver for what we do. We're constantly trying to keep up with this number and trying to make sure that we're there on time, that we get adequately trained people there, that our equipment is well maintained, and that we're able to function as highly sophisticated as the community deserves on every single call. So this is the number that we're chasing. And then, there are a couple different metrics that determine overall effectiveness of an organization. There's some tangible metrics, and then there's some intangible ones. Call volume is one of them. Response times is another one that we will talk about. And then there's the same metric that we talked about with PD, and that's the number of firefighters per 1,000. And we'll kind of briefly touch on each of those. But in regards to, and we'll go to the next slide, in response to the call volume metric, as you see on this slide at the far left, this represents our squad 1. It's a paramedic squad. It has currently 2 firefighter paramedics on it. It runs first out here at Fire Station 1. As you can see, it's 5,400 calls a year. As the city manager has referenced, one of the metrics, the call volume metrics for when we should be looking at a new fire station is 2,500 calls. So we can see the squad one runs 5,400 calls. And if you look over to the right to, I don't know, 3 or 4 bars, you'll see engine 1 that responds out of the same fire station. So we're looking at about 8,000 calls out of our Fire Station 1, where 2,500 is where our target number is on call volume metrics. Engine
That's why he queued Station 1 to send the engine down the street just a second ago. It was amazing time.
Good timing.
To show them the magic, sir. So engine 2 and engine 3 are both consistently over 4,500 calls a year. Those are very busy engines, and you'll hear it said that we are a busy department. And I would like to reiterate what the city manager said. We encourage you to come right out with us because we say that we're busy. We're firefighters. We all say that we're busy, whether we run 3,000 calls a year or 20,000 calls. We say that we're busy. But unless you get to experience it, it doesn't really settle in. I know that the city manager has done a ride along where you really get to see what the toll that it takes on a person to run back to back to back to back all night long for 2 days in a row. It is a challenge. So one of my main focuses, along with Chief Sell, when we got here, was trying to determine ways that we can mitigate this call volume issue. Unfortunately, the most effective is also the most expensive, and that's more people. We're a people business. Robots aren't going to be replacing us anytime soon. So technology absolutely is fantastic, and we're doing our best to implement technology. But the best way for us to mitigate this particular issue is to put more boots on the ground. It is also the most expensive, but that's also been the major focus of Fire's Measure U utilization over the years as well. Next slide. So this is a long garbled table of things that are confusing. But I will draw your attention down to the bottom row of difference, and then the row above it, which is the red 6 minutes, 30 seconds. These are minutes and seconds. And the 6:30 represents the target response, total overall response time from the time that dispatch receives it to the time that we arrive on scene is 6 minutes, 30 seconds is what we're striving for as far as the national, it's not the national average, it's just the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association's recommended response time. So that's the standard. As you can see, on the row below, we are consistently well above this response time. Response time is driven by a couple different things, some of which are well in our control. And I will highlight some of those changes as we get to the right side of this graph. But many of those are directly tied to the amount of resources that we have available to respond when this call goes out. Sometimes it's a challenge. We have multiple calls that get toned out at one time. But the answer to it is still, we need more people. We need more units available to respond. The other issue that we have is the overall construction of the city. We have 5 fire stations currently. I don't have a map, but we're very centrally located for our fire stations. The newest fire station that we have is Station 4, and that was built in 2004. So, our stations were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when the city was much smaller and focused a lot more on Florida Avenue. So as the city has expanded, the fire stations have not kept up with the growth of the city. So we have a geographic challenge of we can only drive so fast, and when roads are bad, when traffic's bad, it's going to take us longer to get there. The prime example that I like to bring up is our Fire Station 3, which is on Devonshire right there, and they respond into 4 seasons. Their response time, code 3 with no traffic, is over 10 minutes.
Wow.
If that station is out on another call, which as we saw, they run 4,600 calls, so the chance that they're out when the call comes in at 4 seasons is high. In fact, it happens about 1,400 times a year that Station 4 responds into Station 3's district, then that response time goes up even more. So sometimes we're looking at 10, 12, 15 minutes. So when we look at the average response times here, these are the factors that are driving that up. So as you can see, I will highlight, it's about halfway through the chart where we look at year 2014, 15, 16 compared to 17, 18, 19. So as we saw leading up to Measure U, there was an event that changed the dynamic within the organization. That was the closing down of Fire Station 5. Fire Station 5 is on the east side of town, it's on Hemet, Florida, and it was closed down prior to Measure U's passing. And even though it's on the far side of town and that's our slowest engine, it has an impact on the overall system, because that's an engine that can respond into Station 1's district that does run 8,000 calls a year. It can run down into Station 2's, and without that piece of apparatus, things slow down. So that's where we see in 2017, 2018, where we do have a marked decrease in response time because Station 5 was reopened. And then we also start to see on the far right side of the table, some of the things that we can improve is making sure that we're getting out the door faster, that our firefighters are getting dressed faster, that we're improving our processes with the dispatching times and automated voice dispatch, so it doesn't actually take a dispatcher the time to talk to the call. We have technology implementation on we call it a tablet command software, but it's an iPad that takes and receives our calls. It helps to improve the efficiency of our units, and that's what we're working on. And like the city manager said, some of this is directly tied to mechanics. Our Fire Station 4 is in a 12-year-old engine, 11-year-old engine it's been stricken with many mechanical issues. Next to that engine is our tiller truck. So that tiller truck that you see is not staffed every day. When they get a call that requires that, the crew from the engine grabs their gear, moves over to the truck, starts it up, and then goes out. So there are these inherent delays. And then as you can understand, if engine 4 is on another call and a fire breaks, we just don't get the truck. So these are the operational things that we can kind of improve on, and we are. And with the city support, we'll talk about some of the purchases that we've invested in to help mitigate some of these things. But these are the drivers that are impacting response time, and these are some of the ways that we're looking to mitigate them. Next slide.
Oh, excuse me. All right, so when was the last time you guys built the fire station?
2004.
Oh, that was when. I think you built it, okay. Because since then, our housing development has increased, like on every angle of the.
I should have put the map in here. Yeah.
We can promise them another.
Yeah, and that is, like I said, 100% the answer is we need more fire apparatus out there to respond. And with the support of Measure U, and we'll talk about it kind of in the next couple slides, with the support from Measure U, with the support of the council, with the support of the city manager, we've been able to address a lot of these issues that unfortunately have not been able to be handled in the past or addressed in the past or improved upon in the past. And we've hit some struggles with it. So we are moving in the right direction. So what we have here is a breakdown of the total personnel over the last 5 years. As you can see at the very bottom, the total, there is a rather steady increase in personnel. With the major increase coming in fiscal year 22-23 to 23-24. The result of this, and I know the numbers don't add up, but take my word on it, was because we were awarded a SAFER grant. And the SAFER grant is a FEMA grant that allows for fire departments to increase their staffing levels. So we were awarded 15 positions. And that is a huge impact to our ability to provide service. So for the past 3-4 years, 2.5, almost 3 years, we've had a good portion of our staffing that have been completely reimbursed by FEMA. And then as you can see at 24-25, we do have an increase of a half employee. And that employee, although it only looks like it's a half employee, it's actually a really big deal for us. This is the city's first paid EMS coordinator, EMS services coordinator. We run about 80% medical calls, but up until this point, this position has been a contract position. We wanted somebody that had the commitment to Hemet, that's had the stake in Hemet, somebody that wanted to be here, and we were able to actually accomplish that this year. So it is kind of a big win for us.
Could I augment your comments on the SAFER grant? The SAFER grant is a temporary grant. It's a 3-year grant. We have one more. We're basically in almost the last year of it now. We're going to be reapplying for the grant for another 3 years because we actually haven't been able to implement it in its entirety. It should be allowing us to deploy another squad. We're moments away from deploying that. You're going to see the response times improve once we do that, and also deploy a truck crew. But we actually haven't implemented the grant. It's been paying for some positions, which has been very helpful financially. But it's critical that we secure a renewal of that grant. And so leadership in the fire department knows that they're working on their friendships and relationships around the state and federal government, because it's the federal government, but the state's helpful too. And if we are unable to do that, the cost of sustaining those 15 positions annually is about $3 million. About that. So it's a huge financial burden to take on in the context of the other financial challenges. So we desperately need the help of the federal government and the state to help us with the SAFER grant. So you're gonna want to track that issue with us over this next several years. But the next 12 months is pretty critical on the SAFER grant.
Yeah, and the big question is what's going on with FEMA. So we're in a holding pattern that normally by this time the notice of funding opportunity for SAFER would have come out, and we would have already been working on an application for it. Because of the uncertainty with funding with FEMA, we're not sure what direction that's going to go. So next slide, and I'm going to apologize in advance. So this bar graph was supposed to be linked to the table before it. And somewhere that link got broken. So the numbers are not the same, but they are supposed to be.
Oh, that makes sense.
And this just shows the overall support that we've received from Measure U and for the city council towards increasing the firefighters that we have out available to respond. And then this also comes in the form of this past year, our squad one, the one that runs that many calls a year, up until this point was funded completely with Measure U funding. There was a dollar amount associated with it. It was funded on overtime. When the overtime went away, the squad went down, and it was just one fewer unit to respond. So this year, with the commitment of the council and the city manager, we had that squad staffed for the entire year, and it makes a profound impact. So this is the same table that we had for PD, except it represents how many of our employees are currently assigned to Measure U, general fund, and then non and general fund. One of the things that I'm gonna highlight, and again, you'll see that these numbers are a little off, so I apologize too, but it's not because they're inaccurate. It's because when I built the other two tables, there was stuff in there that I didn't think were really pertinent to that because it directly responds to our ability to get boots on the ground to respond to emergency incidents. Second, from the last row, we have 10 community risk community risk reduction cadets. This was a program that is completely funded by ARPA, by the fifth district Supervisor Gutierrez, where we temporarily hire high school students and bring them in, and we teach them about code enforcement, building and safety, fire prevention. They get to learn, fire line construction. They help around the city doing fuel mitigation projects, and they help with tentative improvements. And it gives a group of people the opportunity during the summer to spend some time learning about professional or potential different career paths. But it also provides a very big service to the community. And it's completely funded. So that wasn't included in my other chart. This is something that we have funded for 3 years through Supervisor Gutierrez. We are hoping to be awarded a grant that would fund this program for an entire 12 months on top of the 3-year commitment from Supervisor Gutierrez. But it is just something I wanted to highlight. So if you see a big white van with a black stripe and a bunch of kids in it, don't call. And like Chief Ariano, not all of the things, next slide, please. Not all the things on this list are completely funded by Measure U. But the reason that I wanted to include some of this is because without Measure U, some of these things could never happen. We would be so focused on keeping our head above water that we would never be able to actually move forward as an organization. So there are some things, like I said, that in the past, this presentation has been purely Measure U funded items and enhancements for the city. But I think that it's worth noting that Measure U and the stability that provides goes much farther than just the dollar amount. So as I said, the first one, Engine 5 returning to service, very, very big impact. Station 5 runs about 1,400 calls a year. So it does add a very big help to us. And aside from that, it's a morale piece. So if you're working for an organization that's browning out fire stations, it's probably not something that you're going to feel super secure in. And like Chief Ariano talked about the struggles recruiting, we're there as well. The firefighter paramedic position is extremely competitive and everybody's hiring. So we are directly competing with the Ontarios and the Anaheims and the Orange County fires and the LA County fires. And there's no possible way that our wages and benefits would compare with some of those. So when we add the instability or the uncertainty factor into it, sometimes that's just the catalyst that it takes for the employees to say, you know what, I'm gonna go look for something else. So that's why Engine 5 was a big proponent for us. The squad going in service was another big proponent. We're gonna talk about Squad 4 going in service. And what this does is it tells our membership that we heard you. We know that you're worried. We know that it's not sustainable for you to run the calls at the same degree that you're doing. And the city cares about you enough to where we're going to try to provide that relief. At the same time, enhancing the level of service to the community to get to that threshold that you folks deserve. The microwave projects, we're just upgrading some of our dispatch radios. We were working with our PD partners on that. New computer-aided dispatch record management system, that was tablet command. Was that they're really helpful to help us integrate into the other surrounding fire agencies. So when we send our engines up out of state, we can communicate a little bit. We can see where the resources are. We know where base camp is. We can see them on a map. And it just helps our efficiency. There were 3 engines to date that have been replaced with Measure U. Prior to 2021, which is when Engine 1 was purchased. It's a 2021 KME. The last engine that was bought was a 2016 E1. We have 2 of them. Both these engines are in service. And our mechanics will tell you that they're breaking all the time and we cannot get parts for them. Ideally, NFPA recommends 10 years to be rotated into a reserve status, but we are still running the snot out of these things on a day-to-day basis. And it is a game of Tetris to keep things up and running. We'll pull one down, we'll get it fixed, and then we'll go back out, and then that one will go down, and then we're constantly doing it. So like the city manager mentioned, we purchased one in 2021. And then in 2022, we purchased 2 additional type ones. They were bought and paid for, and I'm grateful that we did because, as I said, that $800,000 engine is upwards of $1 million now. We are told that we will be receiving them October of this year. And then they will replace those two frontline engines. We replaced 2 F2, or we purchased 3 F250s. They're the red pickup trucks that you've seen with lights on top. One of them is operating as our Squad 1. The other one is about to go into service as Squad 2, and then the other 2 respond out of town for strike team assignments, which allows our people to participate in the large campaign fires, but it also yields an 100% reimbursement for them, plus a 20% administrative fee to the city. So it actually generates revenue for us to send our folks out of town.
And they get training.
And they get training and experience, and it's very valuable. We purchased a Type 6 brush patrol. This is the equivalent of it's like a Dodge Ram 2500. It's a 5500 chassis. And then it has a box on the back, and it has a small pump and a small tank. So we can use this to go get up into the hills up off of State or over down by the Science Center, and we can access areas that our engines aren't able to get to. We purchased a new truck, although the funding wasn't directly from Measure U. A large portion of this came from the decision to re-implement the vehicle replacement fund, was something that wasn't being contributed to all of these years. So we didn't have the ability to replace these things on a schedule. The truck that we purchased was, I don't want to say, it was on the responsible side price-wise at 2.1 million. It was partially built, as the city manager said. So instead of a 4.5-year build time, we were closer to a year build time. We were supposed to receive this year or this month. This is now pushed back until August. But what's unique about this piece of apparatus is that it's a truck, but it also has a tank and a pump and water on it. So as I mentioned earlier, right now you have an engine and a truck at Station 4. This allows the truck to run first out, so we save the time of transferring units and moving gear, letting air tanks charge up and all those sorts of things. It allows them to respond faster, and they're there on every call that we need them to be on. In Measure U did fund the outfitting of this. So our Jaws of Life, our hose appliances, our hose complement, self-contained breathing apparatus, those were all directly funded from Measure U. We were able to purchase a new deputy chief vehicle. Thank you. We also were able to purchase a EMS coordinator vehicle. This was funded through something that we call AMR system enhancement fees. So AMR is the ambulance provider in the area. When they are late to a call, the county fines them. The county takes the money that they're fined, and then it disperses it to us. So we're able to use that money to help improve our EMS system. The regional the training center that we have behind Fire Station 4, I don't know if you've been over there, over by the airport, you've seen the big columns of smoke coming out of there. We were able to do a 2-story Connex box burn tower that allows our firefighters to participate in live fire exercises. So we're able to simulate real conditions during their training so they can establish the muscle memory to perform the way that we expect them to perform when things are really going badly, I suppose. As well as it's a great opportunity for us to partner with some of our surrounding agencies. We've been able to host classes there. 2 years ago, we hosted a Fire Control 3 class, which is a live fire burning class for the CTEX Expo. It's a training exposium. I forgot what the acronym was. Chief's gonna kill me. But it was an opportunity for the whole region to come to our training center and then to participate in the live fire training. That was all funded by Measure U. And we're able to replace expired PPEs, personal protective equipment. Those are our turnouts, our helmets, SCBAs, our flash hoods, gloves. We have hose clamps, all of those things. We've replaced nearly the entire departments and provided a second set. So one of the big issues that they found is that the turnouts that we use actually trap the carcinogens. So when we run back to back fires wearing the same PPE, we're constantly exposing our people to carcinogens, and that's what's leading to an increase in cancers in firefighters. So by having a second set, the crews can go run a fire, they can go back, they can put on a clean set, and they can start washing their backup sets. So it's a very important aspect to the health and well-being of your firefighters. And then we added an additional workstation for an EMD program, which is another element to reducing that call volume. So what we will be rolling out with our PD partners, hopefully this year, it's called emergency medical dispatch. And what it is the phone triage system that our dispatchers will be trained in. So as you call in 911, the dispatcher will ask a series of questions. Based on those series of questions, they're going to categorize the type of medical call that you have, and then they'll assign an acuity level to it. And then based on that acuity level, we're confident that we can send a variety of different resources regarding what the issue is. If it's a more serious issue, we'll send more resources. If it's a stub toe, maybe we'll just send the ambulance, and the engine and the squad don't have to respond. But right now, because we don't have that triaging, we're kind of taking the caller at their word. And we don't want to send an ambulance to a critical call because we weren't able to ask the right question. So that's something that we're hoping to roll out. Next slide. Oh, wait, back one more. I'll hurry up. So fencing around Station 2 and 5, both of this was Measure U funded. So our Fire Station 2 over off of Stetson and our Fire Station 5 over off Emmett, they were not fenced. We had cars broken into, we had people banging on the door at 2 in the morning. We had some sketchy stuff that occurred. And when I first came here, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Station 2 over there on Stetson, but there's an apartment complex adjoining it. And when I pulled in behind the fire station, our people's cars were parked about 5 or 10 feet away from that block wall. And I asked, like, why are your cars parked here? Well, the people in the apartment will jump on our hoods to jump the block wall. Or they'll throw their trash over the wall and it'll hit our hoods. And so we were able to get those stations secured. And it allows for the safety and well-being. Again, back to the employee pieces, these are the things that tell our employees that they matter. If my safety doesn't matter, then what does? So talked about Medic Squad 1 being fully staffed. Security and technology upgrades at fire headquarters. This dovetails into that security piece. So our headquarters buildings here in Covell, the old library. So I'm sure many of you have been in that building before it was fire headquarters. But you walk right in the front doors and there were these 3-foot tall saloon doors that would be all that's stopping anybody from the front to getting to any of our staff in the back. And there are times that we have staff members that are here late and then they're here by themselves. And it was a lot of concern from our staff about the ability to actually secure the lobby from people coming in. So Measure U allowed us to remodel the front section of our lobby that includes a glassed off case. We have a buzz entry door. We have 2 workstations to improve work efficiency and community interaction. And our staff overall has a more secure place to work. So it was a very big morale builder for our folks. And we currently have a full remodel going at our Station 1. You guys have probably seen the dirt and the dust over there. This was a ARPA funded project, but it does give that our firefighters live here 24 hours a day. So when you live somewhere nice and clean and functional, it gives you a pride and a dedication, and that's really what we really want for that. We're going to be doing a ribbon ceremony for Fire Station 1. Will be a ribbon cutting ceremony, and then we're also looking forward to open house this year in October for all of the public to get to see it. Of course, you folks are all welcome to stop by anytime you like, but there's been a pretty drastic improvement there as well. We've recently started the process for architectural plans for an addition to our Fire Station 2 to house an additional squad, which would be potentially something that adds a little more relief to that station that runs 4,600 calls a year. Medic Squad 4 is going in service. So this is something that's being funded completely with the SAFER grant. As I said, we'll be putting another Medic Squad at Fire Station 4 to help take the burden, not off of actually Fire Station 4, more so Fire Station 3.
Yeah.
But because of the housing situation at Fire Station 3, which we'll talk about, we didn't feel it pertinent to put any more people in that fire station that already have to be there. So Fire Station 4 was a logical choice, and then I'm gonna work on trying to identify ways to reduce the burden on that station with the new squad. We were able to do the first ever Girls Empowerment Camp this past year. We were the first one in Riverside County to be able to do this, and it was a great opportunity for teenage girls to come and get to do some things that they may not have thought that they'd be able to do. We'll call it a recruitment tool, but we all actually know that the main purpose of this is to show some people in this community that they can do more, that they can be more, and that they are stronger than they know that they can, or think that they can be. And then I talked about the risk reduction program. Slide. And this is very brief. I didn't want to get too much into kind of some of the plans that we potentially have, but these are some of the ideas that we have for that fund balance that we had in Tiffany's slide. Our local hazard mitigation plan expired a couple years ago. It's a very comprehensive plan that requires a tremendous amount of work to do. So we're looking at hiring a consultant to make sure that it dovetails into the county's plan, that it dovetails into the city's safety element of the general plan, and that it also accounts for the new fire hazard severity zones that we're implementing statewide. Our emergency operations plan. This is something that we look to how to mitigate the hazards that are identified in the first plan. So we're looking to go to a consultant to help us with this. The process for this is probably going to take about 2 years. So, this is not something that I feel comfortable dedicating a full-time staff to for 2 years. So it is something that's very vital to this community. So we wanted to move forward with that. And then our Fire Station 3, as I touched on briefly, the house was built, it was a house initially, it was a ranch house built in 1960. We built an app bay on top, on the side of it. And the station, it's in a pretty significant state of disrepair. We have termites and leaking and stuff. There's stuff, it needs attention. So we're working with our public works partners to try to find some ways to kind of improve the quality of life in that station as well, being that they're there and they're busy. So that is all that I have. If you guys have any questions.
No, I think you explained everything very well. Yes, very well.
They're hungry. I know.
Good news is we've reached the final slide. But you probably didn't anticipate that we would have 3 hours of background. But I know that it's really important information to kind of get the context for the departments that you're going to be reviewing. And when we built the budget calendar in January, actually December, we contemplated a second meeting in May on the 20th. We would actually like to direct your attention to the week of the 29th of April, in about 2 weeks, to have a follow-up meeting where we're hopeful we can send you some homework in advance with some budget documents, as well as the audit and ACFR document, so that you can look at that hopefully for a few days before the meeting. Even if we don't have the final, I think we'll be in a position to give you a draft, an almost final version. And then we'll tell you what's changed on it, but that will be homework going into the next meeting. One of our questions for you is, does this day of the week and time work for you? 3:30 seemed like a pretty good start time in the past. Just want to validate that works for everyone. Is there a day of the week that is more difficult than the others to meet? Wednesday stuff?
I was gonna say Wednesday was.
We want to try to help each other avoid conflicts. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are okay?
Yes.
Thursdays are often a pretty attractive day for us for meetings, just because Tuesdays are often council meetings or other meetings.
I just know during the school year, that'd be August through May, on Thursdays, the third Thursday of the month, I have meetings from 4 until 7.
I thought we were gonna do Tuesday,
Yeah.
changing to
Well,
Thursday.
I think
It just with the Thursdays.
if we look at the 29th, even though I have a conflict, I think the 29th may be a good day for us. Is that something that we can pencil in and send a meeting invite out to you? Okay, and then I know that other people on the staff side have some, at least I have one conflict on the 20th. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a meeting, right? So we may want to validate that the 20th still works. It was a concept back in December. But that's a meeting, and then I think there's going to be, as you put together, what we did encourage the committee to do last year is begin thinking about creating an ad hoc committee, and we can work with the chair to introduce that as an agenda item on a future agenda, but you'll probably help yourself by designating a couple people, 2 or 3, to begin the writing of your report as you get a little farther down the road. An ad hoc committee of two or 3 people does not need to, we don't need to schedule a meeting. We don't need to take minutes. It's a lot more flexible. You can go have that meeting at a coffee shop, wherever you want to go. So down the road, we anticipate that may be a helpful strategy for you as you get closer to the final budget. Sadly, this year will be probably a budget that won't be finalized until June. There's an outside chance we can get done in May as we initially anticipated, but because we really started with about a $14 million challenge. We're down to probably about $5 million of one-time monies. It really is 10 if you think about it's a long story, but if you think about the investment revenue that we're earning today that won't be there tomorrow. But we're still solving a budget challenge and we're working on that. We're going to share with you some of those finer details at your next meeting.
Okay. All right.
We leave this at 30?
No, you,
Okay.
you leave the white.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just. Jumped ahead to the end. All right, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us today.
See you again. I forgot. I forgot my grand.